So hey guys, this is your favorite fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto awakens the multi-bloodline and love with Queen Naruko. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. Flashback: a strong storm brewed as if the heavens themselves cried at the image before it. A giant red nine-tailed fox stood glaring at the three figures before them. A blonde-haired man, a red-haired woman, and a ghostly apparition holding a tanto with prayer beads in the left hand. And in the center, an infant girl fresh from her mother's womb on a ceremonial pedestal. I'm going to perform the sealing Kushina. If you've got anything to say to our daughter, say it now. It will be some time before we see her again, you know. A blonde-haired man said to his wife as the two looked down past the giant blood-stained claw impaling them through their stomachs while they looked at their black-haired red-streaked daughter. This man was the fourth Hokage Minato Senju Namikaze's son of Tobirama Senju before his death and a civilian woman who passed after giving birth to him. While the red-headed woman was Kushina Uchiha Uzumaki, daughter to Madara Uchiha, although unlike her husband she was aware of her parentage. Like all Uzumaki women, she was born with both male and female genitalia as a mechanism to help birth children, because in Uzu the population of women to men were large. For every one man there were 20 women, and within land of 4, 0 there were few men to know. Huff, huff, asterisk. Naruko, don't be a picky eater, eat a lot, grow big and strong. Make sure to bathe daily, stay warm, don't stay up too late, and get plenty of rest, okay? The more she spoke, the more it tore at the nine tails and the Shinigami, as like Kushina and Minato they fought the urge to cry. Plus, make friends. You don't need a village full, alright, just a few that you know you can trust fully, even with the most secret of things you have to say. She breathed in and continued, feeling the stinging in her eyes as they shifted into a fully formed Sharingan, continuing on to form an EMS that looked to be a 8-pointed shuriken with the ends protruding with a flame-like design, giving it the appearance of the sun. And your mom was bad at this, but study hard and practice your ninjutsu. It's just, some people are good at some things and not so good at others. Wiping away a stray tear, she continued. So even if things don't go well, don't get depressed. Okay? At the academy, respect your teachers and those seniors to you. As she chuckled good-naturedly, she said, rasping, and regarding the 3 prohibitions, be extremely careful about loaning and borrowing money. Save it from your mission payments for something really important. Don't start drinking until you're 21. Drinking excessively is bad for you, so if you are going to drink, do it in moderation. Another tear formed in her eyes as she continued, finding it more and more difficult to contain them, while inside Minato, Kyuubi, and the Shinigami were crying fiercely. And, more than likely, if you're like most Uzumaki women and with the men in this village, save for your father of course, the most problematic of the 3 are women. At that, Minato chuckled painfully as she said, I'm one, so I don't really understand this debate, but at some point, you will notice women, and that's natural, but just be careful as to not fall for the first girl you meet. Try to find one, like your Ka-chan, okay? The tears were flowing freely from everyone's eyes as the shinobi, their cage, and the Anbu listened to the heartbreaking words a mother would speak for the first and last time to her child. Plus, speaking of the 3 prohibitions, be very wary about Jiraiya. Her hands clenched, drawing more blood from her body as she said, Naruko-chan, you're going to face many difficult, painful, and trying times ahead, but you have to make sure to take care of yourself, and have dreams, and the courage and confidence to make those dreams a reality. At this, her and Minato's hands we conjoined while the Shinigami sadly poised her tanto ready to strike, thinking about how unfair this was for a child to lose both her mother and father in a night with nobody to raise them. She knew all too well that the very people this girl's parents have given their lives to save won't appreciate the young girl, neither will they treat her well, and intended to do something to repay the young girl for her pain. Huff, huff, asterisk. So much, there's so much, Kushina said as her voice grew over the silent rasp to a regretful yell. There really is so much more I want to tell you. I want to be with you, as your mother, longer. I love you, my little Naruko, she said as her tears wouldn't cease while her vision began to blur, looking down at her daughter's face for the first time. Their eyes locked. Dujutsu to amethyst eyes with blackish red flecks looked back into her own as her daughter reached her hand out, gripping onto her finger tightly. If one were to look over to the shinobi standing just a ways away from them, they could see the shinobi all look on with mournful expressions, as many of the shinobi were orphans and knew that this child would grow as one as well, while many vowed to look after her. The only ones who wore an expression that showed they didn't care was Kakashi, who had a look of rage as he glared at the infant, blaming her for his sensei's death. And Minato's sensei Jiraiya, who was plotting on a way to keep her controlled due to a prophecy he was told by the toads. They heard her continue. "Sorry, Minato. I guess I took up your time." He shook his head stiffly as he said, looking at his daughter with the same loving smile his wife was giving their daughter, "Naruko, I've gained a few titles that I can say I'm proud of, but the one I have, even though recent, isn't the title of Hokage that I wear with pride. It is the title as your father, like your mother. I too wish I could be here with you longer. I wish I could be there to train you as a kunoichi, give boys death threats for coming on to my little princess, and to one day work alongside you and your mother as a fellow kunoichi of the leaf." The clan heads just arrived hearing this and vowed to look after their friend's daughter, while he continued as Heishi discreetly handed Sume a couple 100,000 ryo on a bet they made. "Naruko, there are many who would want to hurt you because of either something petty, or because they blame you because of Kyuubi's attack. I want you to know that, if they don't treat you well, you have every right to retaliate in kind. I know a father would be against violence, but this is also an order as your village leader for the next few moments. Defend yourself and those who hold a special place in your heart." He sighed, stroking his daughter's whiskered cheek, getting a tiny purr from their daughter, seeing the tears starting to form, knowing she was going to lose them cease making him smile, brushing his cheek against Kushina's. "And everything else is ditto to what your loquacious mother said." He finished the sealing as the Kyuubi was sealed away in a complex seal on Naruko's navel, leaving only the bodies of her parents with several seals on her shoulder that promptly vanished as Sarutobi picked up the now crying infant. He thought, "Minato, if only you let me perform the sealing, you could have taken care of your daughter." He turned to the shinobi gathered, saying, "Let's go everyone, we have a lot of work to do. If you would catch word of this, we're going to have trouble on our hands, and that's something we don't need at the moment." They nodded, dashing through the trees as he sealed away her parents' bodies in a scroll to bury them later. In Kami's realm, Kisa turned to her oldest sister, who seemed to be depressed, and asked, "What is wrong, sister?" She sighed loose and said, "I was summoned to seal away Kyuubi, but this was in a newborn little girl." Not understanding what's wrong, she said, "And what's the problem? Do you know her name?" She nodded. "Yes, her name is Naruko Uzumaki Uchiha Senju Namikaze, daughter of Minato Namikaze Senju and Kushina Uzumaki Uchiha. And the problem is that before I sealed it away and took her father's soul, the two of them died, blocking a claw that was bound to kill her." The two gasped, not only at her name but also to the fate of her parents and herself, when Jun said, "So what can we do for the child of prophecy?" All of them were quiet until Kisa said, "Why don't we watch her life till we're ready and confront her? But one thing that can be done is to stop other children from going through this." Not understanding, Haruna said, "What are you going to do about the other Biju?" She paused as she said, "I was thinking, remember when we created the first Jubi?" Jun and Kisa nodded, remembering how busy the three of them were sending the various souls to their destinations. She pressed on, "Well, the reason why the 10 Tails was a flop in the first place was because we forgot to give it a consciousness or a compassionate heart. It only had one job and someone corrupted it. What if we gather the other 8 in?" Jun picked up, finally understanding what Kisa was trying to say, "And make young Naruko-chan the new Jubi." She nodded as Haruna thought about it, saying, "And with her holding all 3 bloodlines of the sage that could control a Biju, she won't go out of control." If possible, her smile that was slowly growing was so big it nearly split her face. "That's right. And remember what the original Kami told us before he gave us control." The 2 other girls nodded with a blush, brushing a hand at the nape of their necks, making her smile, saying, "Well, let's get to work." Hokage's office. Fools, all of them. How can they hate a single child who didn't ask for this life? Is this truly the same village you gave your life to save Minato? Kushina? Would either of you have given you life knowing the fact the village calls for her blood? Sarutobi said, looking at the photo of Minato as it seemed to scowl with disgust, as if the thought left a bitter taste in his mouth. Sarutobi nodded, saying, "Yes, I figured as much. All I can do is hope she has as good a life as possible. I'm thankful the other clans, save for a % of the Uchiha, are willing to have their shinobi look after her. Maybe it's possible." He was cut from his musings as 8 lights shot through the sky in various colors as they flew to Konoha, or more precisely into Naruko, wrapping her in a cocoon that crackled with electricity till it faded, showing Naruko now have silver streaks in her hair. Her eyes flashed before she closed her eyes, and her nails on both her hands and feet were sharp like claws. But the most notable features were her canine-like ears and a tail that looked like they belonged on a wolf. He looked towards the sky as if a sign was given to him as he nodded, sealing away things that belonged to her parents, and placed it on a seal her left shoulder. He sighed, thinking as he got up, holding her in his arms with his feet propped up on the desk, "Now it's all up to Kami-sama now." Present overview. It had been 15 years since, and Naruko grew to be a powerful kunoichi. At the age of 3 she knew many people in the Leaf weren't going to accept her, and she accepted that fact. It was also when she awakened her heritage as a Uzumaki, Uchiha and Senju, as well as a Namikaze. From the Uzumaki she awakened the chakra chain and Rinnegan. From the Uchiha she awoken Sharingan. The Senju she got their famous chakra control. What many didn't know was that the Senju had a secondary bloodline known as the Heavenly Body Bloodline. This allowed the user to grow to perfection. Their strength, stamina, reflexes, everything about her grew in spades. At a young age she was cold, dark and impersonal to people she didn't like or trust, and made no effort to conceal the small fact that if you harm her she won't hesitate to kill you. As such, the only people she looked upon with kindness in her eyes were the Hokage, the clans, and the elders, and the people she trusted. They went out of her way to help her grow, not only as a woman but as an aspiring kunoichi who by now was already beyond S-class. When those 8 lights hit her she became the new Jubi as the 9 converged inside her as she unconsciously absorbed them into her. From what she can sense, the 8 were still in the elemental nations, as it appears, as they left a small trace of their yukai inside them to use. The only people who she told this to was again the clan heads, the Hokage, and the elders, and the people she trusted. Especially when at the age of 12, using a special training ground her parents had created in the family home that gave her years of training in the matter of months, she became far stronger than a cage, as every year on her birthday she grew another tail, as the more she grew the more powerful she became, as she had grown to her 10th at the age of 10, but her strength continued to grow though she had nobody to make her go beyond her first tail. She was a prodigy that broke the mold in a sense. Whatever weapon she held she did it with grace and mastery. Her reserves and control were so immense that she could fight for years without stopping, and that could be compared to a drop of water in a bucket. Her taijutsu she took to with no effort as she learned them and took them apart as a master. The things she took to the most was fuinjutsu, ninjutsu, taijutsu and kenjutsu, though she used genjutsu from time to time. It just didn't fit her style. But how about we go see the young Biju now? Namikaze Uzumaki compound beep 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 B smash. Asterisk. Whoever invented the alarm clock is going to get my boots shoved so far up their ass I'll be wearing them as a oversized leg warmer. A voice groaned under the cover of the as another voice giggled at her discontent. Geez, Naruko-chan, you lazy bitch, you've gotta get up, today is the genin exam and we're about to be late. A voice said, coming into the room dressed in a pair of Endo-styled pants. She had on a cream-colored jacket that was left open, showing her wearing a mesh shirt over a black top with a bit of cleavage showing her having a low D cup. Her hair was purple and long, reaching her upper back, while her eyes were a pale lavender. This was Hinata Hyuga. The two of them grew up together as she was saved by Naruko when she was being kidnapped by Kumo Shinobi, as she was chosen to act as her guard. The two have been close ever since, though when the two became mates she's dropped her shy personality and became brash and foul-mouthed from time to time. A hand waved from under the cover as she was given the one-finger salute, causing Hinata to giggle even more as she said, "Not my fault a certain Hyuga heiress was a little too frisky last night now, was it?" Looking innocent she said, "Me? I don't know what you're talking about." An amethyst eye peeked from under the blanket as she glared at her while a pair of arms wrapped around her, bringing her back into the bed, moaning, "MHHHH 5 more minutes Hinaheim." Having none of it she said, "No Naruko, now get out of bed or no special time." Groaning she relented as she got out of bed, standing, showing she was wearing a pair of sweatpants and a mesh shirt which she removed going to the bathroom, while on her arm was. Hinata chuckled as a yipping sound hit her ears as she felt a pressure on her lap, causing her to look down to see a black fox with white paws and tips at the end of her ears and her tail. Picking her up to come eye to eye with each other she said, "Hey Kuroka-chan, mommy is silly, isn't she?" The vixen yipped in agreement as they heard Naruko from the bathroom. I heard that. The two looked at each other before the two of them sniggered much to her annoyance. At the academy. Ah, Naruko-chan, no need to pout, it was all in good fun, Hinata said to Naruko, who pouted, wearing black Anbu-styled pants with a gray wrap and rearing the wrap to her waist as her spiky black hair went to her thigh in a low ponytail with a red bang covering her left eye as the rest was a barrage of black with red and silver streaks. She wore a mesh shirt along with a long-sleeve black kimono top with the Uzumaki clan and Senju clan symbols on her back. At her waist were Chikuto, a katana with a U-shaped guard and a seal on the back of her left hand called family in kanji. Though she never had the need to draw them either by her opponent being too weak or she found them unworthy of drawing her blades. While on her other hand is the tattoo of a serpent with wings spiraling around her arm as the mouth landed on the back of her right hand. She was the kunoichi of the year since they were placed in the academy when they were 6 and has remained at the top with Hinata being second, Ino being third and Sakura being fourth. She found a few things wrong with the academy, one such being the fact that the civilians have control over it and turned it to shit. And 2. Sasuke and his fan club have been on her ass since the beginning due to his father thinking they could get her under their control and has tried to have her forcefully married to Sasuke, which ended badly as she kicked the ass of every person who came with that intent. Case in point being the shinobi under the civilians' command, and anyone stupid enough to follow the orders of a kid who isn't even a genin yet. Sasuke himself still tries with no success. What did you do this time? Ino said, leaning over her desk next to her childhood friends Shikamaru and Choji, who were both asleep and munching on a bag of chips respectively. Hinata thought it would be hilarious to hit me with an experimental smoke pellet which turned out to be a stink pellet. Naruko said with a huff. Even though she completely got rid of the stink, it was all for the sake of giving her a hard time. It was an accident, Naru-chan. I said I was sorry, she complained as Kiba sniggered until Hinata shot him with a glare. Kiba is the heir of the Inuzuka clan and another close friend of Naruko who he sees as another sister, with Akamaru talking to Kuroka as they sat on the desk. Shino said, "This was to be expected as an outcome, though don't you think you've dragged this on long enough, Naruko?" She pouted, saying, "Man, Shino, you know how to pop a girl's balloon, don't ya?" He shrugged, saying, "It's a Aburame thing." She was about to say something when Naruto came into the room with his assistant Mizuki, who sent a subtle glare at Naruko's direction, making her send a chilling look of indifference, causing him to jerk much to her amusement. "Hello everyone, I'm proud to see everyone here to take the test to prove they're worthy as the title of kunoichi and shinobi alike. Many of you will walk out of the academy with your headbands, while a few who made no effort to grow will not. The exam will be split into 5 portions, with the 5th being optional." He paused as he regained his breath. "They're the written exam that will go on till either everyone is finished, or until the time is over, which is an hour. The second exam will be the taijutsu. This is where you fight either me or Mizuki till the time is up or until you land a hit. The third is the kunai and shuriken exam to test your accuracy with throwing weapons. The fourth being the Academy 3, where you perform the basic techniques. And an extra credit exam where you perform a jutsu outside of one you learned in the academy." Seeing he had everyone's attention, he nodded to Mizuki, saying, "Eyes on your own papers, and once everyone has their papers you can then begin." Hokage Tower. In the Hokage Tower, the Hokage himself, or as Naruko addresses him with endearment, Oji-chan, and several people she cares about that sees as loved ones and one that she utterly despises. From right to left are Kurenai Yuhi, someone she saw as an older sister. Asuma Sarutobi, son of Hiruzen Sarutobi, and to her is someone she sees as an uncle. Next to him was Guy, someone she called Bushi Oji, followed by Anko, who grew to love little Naruko since she spent watching over her. Then there is Yuga One-chan, and the various clan heads who she also had endearing names for. And the one person she has a strong distaste for, Kakashi. The man has hated her since she was born, blaming her for her father's death, claiming her to be the 9 tails given human skin. "I wonder how the brats are going to do," Sume said, looking at the crystal ball, seeing Naruko form a hand sign discreetly as the test she was given change, matching the other students, causing their eyes to narrow. Shikaku said, "It's obvious as to how they'll do. I just worry about the teams and who they are all going to end up with when it is all said and done." Everyone got the hidden meaning behind his words, as they knew the civilian council would do everything in their power to get Naruko under Kakashi's watch to control her. Inoichi nodded till he saw Naruko put her head down after the test started as he said, Did she finish that quickly? The others looked at her paper as the Hokage zoomed in to get a closer look at her paper as Shikaku whistled. Damn, she finished before Shikamaru. I wonder if she even put any effort into this? Sume snorted, saying, Please Shikaku, this is the same girl who saved Hiashi's pup, saved his brother from being sent by his elder council as a reconciliation attempt, and saved Hanako from dying of birth complications on her youngest pup. And this was all at the age of 4. Do you really think she put any effort into a paper exam? He shook his head, saying, You're right on that one, as troublesome as it is. Hokage-sama, I must ask, why is she even taking these exams in the first place when everyone here knows that she goes far beyond that of even many of our Chunin, let alone most of the Junin? The aged Kage took a puff of his pipe as he exhaled, saying, She said she wanted to graduate with her friends and grow with them. The shrugged as he looked at the screen, saying, Now everyone watch, the fights are about to start. Outside the academy. All right, good job Hideki, you did an excellent job, Iruka said as the young civilian boy ran to his friends while Naruko and her friends sat on the bleachers with her head in Hinata's lap, purring slightly as Hinata brushed her hand against her whiskered cheek as she rubbed Kuroka's stomach as she laid on hers. Hinata and the others had already fought and won easily due to having their respective clans train them since they could talk. Sigh asterisk. Lady Hinata, Naruko said good-naturedly, only for her to get a glare from Hinata in exchange, making her chuckle. You know I hate it when you call me that, Naru-chan, and I know what you're going to say, and yes, use a single %, nothing more. Understood, Hinata said in an authoritative tone, while many others who heard her wondered, why only a single %? Cage office. Oh, I feel bad for whoever she faces on this fight, but knowing her luck, it's going to be the Uchiha brat, Sume said, only for her to get a snort from her partner. Please Sume, it's either going to be him or Mizuki. The man has had it out for the pup since she was a little girl. And the brat just always want to show somebody up, Kuromaru her ninkin said, looking at her with his one good eye. I'll put money on the Gaki being her opponent. I already know how the fight will turn out either way, Anko said, with several others doing the same, wagering the losing bets have to do twice the amount of D-rank missions, or the winners get half their higher mission payments should they lose. It was safe to say that the votes against her were small, but their wages were high. The ones who voted for her to win could feel their bank accounts sing. Academy training ground. All right, the next fight will be Sasuke against Iruka started until Sasuke cut it, Naruko. He sighed in irritation. Sasuke, you're going to fight. I want to fight Naruko so she learns her place as my bitch, he shouted as the air grew cold, making Iruka sigh, thinking. The brat made his mess, hopefully this will knock him down a few pegs. You please get over here, please. We still have a few fights to. Iruka started till Naruko appeared next to him with a cold indifference on her face, shaking many as Madara's image appeared over her own, making everyone think, he's fucked. Tossing her swords to Hinata, she said coldly, You know Sasuke, I have no problems fighting you or embarrassing you like I always do. When you try to make yourself look good, though you make yourself look like an ass on your own, which I love to see. Hokage office. Oohhh, the brat dug himself a grave this time. Last time someone called her a bitch, the man ended up in the hospital for months. I wish I brought popcorn, Sume said, chuckling till a hand holding a large bag of popcorn appeared under her nose. What? I knew she would either fight Mizuki or the brat would say something that would get him in trouble, and wanted to enjoy the show. So Sumi, I'm a woman who enjoys the finer things in life, Anko said with a casual shrug till Kurenai smirked. Please Anko, your idea of the finer things in life, as you say, is to listen to the pain-filled screams of others and their struggles, Kurenai said as Asuma and the other occupants nodded, getting a none-caring shrug as response as she tossed a handful of popcorn in her mouth. Shish, the fight's about to start, she and Sume said simultaneously, staring at the screen intently. Training ground. So are you going to make your move, or are you going to bitch out as I make the starting move? She said, shrugging her shoulders as she got a few pops in response. He gave no response as he dashed at her with a punch, seeing as she didn't take a stance while she looked boredly as Sasuke choreographed his moves. She ducked under it as he made a come around with a spin kick, which she blocked with her right leg. Bringing her left fist up, she hit him in the solar plexus, making him stumble back. This went on for a while as Naruko ducked and dodged his attacks while countering ever so often. She sighed in disappointment, saying, I'm getting bored too quickly, I'll just finish this. He was about to make a smart-ass remark till she vanished from everyone's sight till he felt something embed itself into his stomach as he looked down to see it was Naruko's foot when he was sent flying into Mizuki. She looked over at her sensei and said, I know we didn't start the match yet, but seeing as he was so eager, you willing to call it? He nodded, writing down the scores as she was given a perfect score due to not receiving a single blow and 1 in under the time limit. Hokage office. Huh. Did you see that she kicked the Uchiha's ass straight out of the field? That was perfect. Who bet me she would lose to the Uchiha in 2 minutes? Somebody owes me 4,000 ryo. Anko said as several Junin handed her 4,000 ryo each, making her one. Lucky bitch, Sarutobi thought, she could very well be the first. I'll sleep on it, we've got a month to do so. Academy training ground. Naruko Baka help Sasuke-kun. Sakura shouted. Sakura. Haruno was the leader of the Sasuke Uchiha fan club. She and Sakura had originally been best friends like she was with Ino and Hinata, but sometime later she claimed that they wanted Sasuke for themselves and cut all friendships and relations to them. It hurt them to see Sakura, who was so well trained, let her skills diminish to non-existent levels. Even though she may not show it, she does still care for Sakura like she would a little sister. Sakura. Sasuke-san asked for me to fight him and he made the first blow. I don't have to do anything, and besides he's fine, just unconscious, nothing more, she said, walking back to the others. Looking over Sasuke, he said, seeing as Sasuke's unconscious. We're going to take a half-hour break, so you're free to go for the time being and eat. But once you're finished, get back here, all right? They all agreed and left the academy to their respective stands, with Hinata and Naruko to go to the pastry shop that sold her favorite cinnamon buns. You know, love, I see why you like these. They come in large amounts, they taste great, and they're cheap, Naruko said as she plucked 2 from the case of 20, seeing as they bought enough for the both of them and sealing away her case for later. She giggled enthusiastically, saying, of course, they're Kami's plentiful gift to mankind. She got a blank look from Naruko as she snorted. Hun, I'm going to forget that you said that, seeing as ramen is the one true gift and all others are insufficient, Naruko said. Hinata blew raspberries at her as she collected herself, saying, Naruko-chan, I won't be able to spend time with you for today. After we get our headbands, my parents want to celebrate with me and I promised Hanabi I would help her with her taijutsu. Not liking this but agreed, she nodded, saying, alright hun, besides I have a feeling Mizuki's up to something, so I was going to see the old man once my suspicions were confirmed. Kissing Naruko briefly, she said, don't worry, tomorrow I will spend all day with you, okay? She nodded, saying, alright, I guess, come on. It seems Uchiha-chan finally decided to wake up. True to Naruko's word, Sasuke was up and moving, albeit stiffly, from Naruko's hard kick to his mid-region. Alright everyone, seeing as Sasuke is finally up, we can continue on with the exams. This is the kunai and shuriken accuracy portion. You will be given 10 shuriken and 20 kunai and you have to hit the targets. First up is Hideki Miyochu. Cage office. Alright, take your bets folks, take your bets. I got money on Naruko doing better than the Uchiha again, Anko said with a little black book as she took others' bets with the same amount of wagers during the previous portion. Oh, it seems the Uchiha's up and it seems our kids have gotten better in accuracy, Sume said, pointing to the screen, acting arrogant much to the other viewers' disgust. Academy training ground. Alright Sasuke, you know what to do. First up, the shuriken portion, Haruka said as Sasuke gave a dismissive grunt and grabbed the 10 shuriken and gave them a quick toss, getting 8 to hit as 2 missed as Haruka jotted them down. Nodding, he said, alright Sasuke, now for the kunai portion. He grabbed those and tossed each of them as Sasuke missed one as it sailed past its head. Alright Sasuke, nice job. Now next up is Naruko Uzumaki, Haruka said as Sasuke walked past her, bumping into her with his shoulder. Beat that loser, he said, only for him to trip as she sauntered past him, saying, don't worry, I will, like always. Alright Naruko, same deal as everyone else. 10 shuriken. 20 kunai, start when you're ready, Haruka said. She nodded, grabbing the shuriken first like everyone else as she focused, feeling them to be off balance. She smirked and tossed them all at the targets in one fluid motion, hitting dead center of each sure kill spot. Haruka whistled as he said, excellent Naruko, now for the kunai portion. Like before, the shuriken were off balance and chipping metallic paint, making her eyes narrow as she tossed them again with more force as they embedded themselves up to the hilt in every sure kill spot and extra in the heart, head and jugular. As everyone paused, hearing the shouts of despair coming from the Hokage's office, followed by two women's laughing evilly, causing everyone who knew those voices to sweat drop. Ignoring that random moment, he nodded in appreciation, saying, "Excellent job, Naruko, perfect score, alright everyone head inside for the final exam." Academy classroom. Everyone other than Naruko had finished their final test and had gained their headband as Naruko sat relaxing with her head in Hinata's lap, sleeping till she slowly awoke, hearing Hinata's voice. "Ruko. Aruko. Naruko-chan, you gotta wake up, it's your turn. Are you feeling okay? You've been sleeping a lot?" Hinata said as she got up, stretching as her chest jiggled as many guys ogled her, but none more so than Hinata, who had a slight nosebleed. "I'm fine, Hina-chan, just tired." "You said it was my turn?" she said, getting a nod as she pointed at the irritated Iruka as he tapped his foot impatiently, making her chuckle impishly after Sasuke jumped the stairs, saying monotonously, "Sorry, Iruka-sensei. Shall we go?" He nodded with a smile, leading her to another room. One room over. "All right, Naruko, same as always, one transformation, a replacement and a clone jutsu," Iruka said at the end of the desk with Mizuki next to him. She nodded, using the transformation, turning into Iruka completely, with the scar and clipboard in hand, making him nod, satisfied with the results. "All right, Naruko, now for the replacement, ready?" She nodded again as he tossed the blunt kunai, when right before it hit a textbook, landing at the edge of a desk, giving her extra points for the seal-less transformation. He nodded, saying, "Good job on the use of no hand signs, Naruko. Now for the last part, you have to perform a single clone." She nodded when in a puff of smoke there were three of her. As she nodded to the two, they moved from their spot as one went to the desk that had the impaled book. She pulled the kunai from it, handing it to Iruka as the other one opened the window adjacent to him. "So did I pass?" said the clone by the window, getting over his shock. Mizuki said, "Sorry, Naruko, but you had to perform the clone jutsu. These are obviously not the standard Hokage office." "That's bullshit. Everyone knows it's genetically impossible for her to use E-rank jutsu like the clone. It was made apparent to all instructors," Asuma said with a scowl as the cigarette started to burn faster. The others nodded while Kakashi said nothing, silently hoping Iruka wouldn't say anything, which proved unfruitful. "Now hold on, Mizuki, we never specified to the students what clone they had to perform. A few kids performed clones outside of the standard. What makes her different?" Iruka said as he handed her headband, with her tying it around her neck with a black cloth instead of blue. "Congratulations, Naruko, now you can go and join your friends. I'm sure they're going to want to know you passed," he said, getting a small smile from her as she ran out of the classroom. The Hokage took a puff on his pipe, saying, "All right everyone, we have a month, so think on what teams you're going to want and get here bright and early." Dismissed. They all nodded, leaving one by one till Anko was the one to remain. "Is there something I can do for you, Anko-chan?" She nodded and said, "Yes, Hokage-sama, I would like to ask for Naruko as a student." "Ichiraku ramen. Hey Ayame ne 3 bowls of my usual for the girl who graduated at the top of her class," Naruko said, taking a seat at her favorite restaurant. "You passed, congratulations, Naruko-chan. I knew you could do it. Your order will be ready soon." "Dad, 3 large Naruko specials for the newly minted genin," the waitress said. Ayame was one of the many who held a special place in Naruko's heart. She became an older sister to her when the two of them first meet, and when she took her to buy some clothes for a little girl and fed her. Seeing as her father became a grandfather figure, she took the role of a mother-sister figure, as she always went out of her way to take care of her, and even going as far as to get her groceries. Although what many didn't know was that the two of them were former shinobi, with the two of them being Junin before they both retired. Tucci retired as an A rank to take care of his daughter, while Ayame retired as the few S-rank kunoichi who could fight Izumi, Itachi, on even ground, going so far as to win every now and again to protect her as a child. "Ah, Naruko's here. Congratulations, Naruko, though I had no reason to doubt ya. You've been training seriously since you've been our bright-eyed little girl." "Ah, the memories," he said as he wiped away an imaginary tear from his eye, getting a simultaneous eye roll from the two girls. Chuckling as he placed 3 large bowls of salt ramen, she said with a small mouthful, "As eventful as the road down memory lane is, Tucci Oji-chan, I still gotta get my team set up first, you know." He nodded, saying, I know Naruko, I'm just proud I remember when you were that little girl clinging to Ayame's apron when she first brought you here. And now you're this beautiful young woman who's ready to defend her home. Soon you're going to have your own children and bring them here to eat. Smiling, she heard a seat creak as she took a glance. From the corner of her eye she saw Mizuki saying, "I'll have a miso please. Anyways Naruko, congratulations on passing." Hearing the false sincerity she smiled saying, "Thanks Mizuki-sensei, I've been working hard to get here." Nodding, he gave his thanks to Tucci, who gave him his miso. After taking a few bites he said, "Yes, and that's why I'm here, you see. I can tell your talents would be a waste as a genin doing the grunt work." She nodded, knowing that it would be a while before she took any serious missions. She responded, "True, but somebody's gotta do it. Might as well be me, you know?" Shrugging, he said dismissively, "Well, that is true. But what if I told you I knew a way for you to be able to bypass that?" Raising an elegant eyebrow, she said curiously, "And what way is that? I would have thought you'd offer this opportunity to Sasuke." Shaking his head, he said, "Well, truth be told, I don't think he's quite ready for the advancement in rank. You see, there is a secret test for fresh genin who show skill to bypass that and become a chunin." Feigning intrigue, she said, "Oh, what is it, Mizuki-sensei? Is it difficult?" Shaking his head with a smirk, he said, "Not at all. All you've gotta do is sneak into the Hokage's office tonight and acquire the forbidden scroll and bring it to the forest by the shack that was destroyed by midnight tonight, understood?" She nodded with false enthusiasm, thinking, "So this is what the little worm has been planning. Better go inform the Hokage, though. I wonder what this feeling is at the pit of my stomach." Waiting till he vanished, she turned to her two remaining bowls as she slurped those two down and said, "All right, Ayame ne Tuchi Oji, I gotta go, see later." They waved her off as she hopped from roof to roof, hauling ass to the Hokage tower, missing Anko, who jumped past her, who had a look of joy on her face. Hokage's office. "My, this is troubling indeed. Are you sure this is what he said?" Naruko, the aged Hokage, asked with concern, and how could he not? The woman he sees as a granddaughter is telling her one of his shinobi is attempting to use her to steal the forbidden scroll. "Yes, I'm sure, and he gave me specific instructions to do so. How to avoid the Anbu, the times they change out, where it's hidden, and where to meet him. I know that he is trying to use me so that I'll take the fall in an attempt to get the scroll for himself or for someone who wants it and is paying a pretty penny," she said in a serious tone, showing him she had zero doubt. Contemplating, he thought it over. Naruko was one of the most trusted people he knew alongside the clan heads, his advisors, and knew he could trust whatever they had to say over someone else's word, so he took the gamble. "All right, Naruko, just be careful, all right?" He relented with concern, getting a nod from her. "So how are we going to do this, Hokage-sama?" she asked her leader as he took his authoritative posture. "This is going to be your first B-rank mission as a genin, Naruko. You are to take the scroll to the meeting spot tonight at midnight, which 10 minutes before I will raise alarm alerting the village the scroll had been stolen. Once you confront him, subdue him and bring him here with an Anbu," he said, getting a salute as they both turned to the clock as it read 11:45. Opening the panel behind the bookcase, he brought out the scroll and told her, "You have 5 minutes to get there, which is when I will raise the alarm." She nodded, taking the scroll, and ran out the window with the scroll strapped to her back as he watching, thinking, "You'd be proud of your daughter Minato. Kushina, both of you would." GJ Base. Mess hall. "I can't believe that bastard did this to me after all the years I've been faithful to him," a reed head said in anger as she smashed her hands into the metal table with her two friends both enraged. This was Kimberly Ann possible. Ever since she aligned forces with Shigo and Drew Lipsky the Reformed to defeat the Lowardian invasion, she and Ron had gotten married 8.5 years later, graduated from college with a PhD in psychology and medicine. At that same time, she had joined GJ on the recommendation of their leader Dr. Director as her successor when she had two teammates, Shigo, or as her original name Sheila Go, the former villainous turned good, and Monique, who grew tired of working as a fashion designer and became a frontline fighter after training with Kim and Shigo to help her grow stronger, which she did as she would win a fight against Kim twice every 6 fights, while with Shigo she won 1 every 4. "I can't believe Ron did this either. You two were crazy about each other and were happy when you two got married. What went wrong?" Monique said to the 26-year-old crime fighter. "What did you do when you saw them?" Shigo asked, finally speaking as she felt Kim calm down. Taking a deep breath to even her breathing, she said, "When I saw, I just lost it." I grabbed Ron by his shoulder and kicked him into the wall and made him watch as I beat that whore's ass after I threw my wedding ring at him. I just left with what little I could grab in as quick a time as possible. Right now I'm living in the GJ barracks till I can get a new place. The two were about to protest when the communicators went off, showing an adult youth known as the former child genius Wade Lode. Kim, Monique, Shigo, you're needed in S office for a mission. Nodding, Kim asked, anything we need to know? He shook his head saying, just your usual stuff. Created some new device and is intending to use it unless his demands are met. She nodded saying, all right Wade, see ya soon, and tell Maria and your little girl I said hi. He smirked, signing off as she sighed, getting up. Come on girls, a villain's ass isn't going to kick itself. They nodded, running out of the mess hall office. Ah, Kim, Monique, Shigo right on time, said. She just like always was a beautiful woman without having to focus on her looks. Her brunette hair was done in a short cut as always, with her eye patch forgotten due to Wade Lode giving her a new eye thanks to his practices in stem cells and robotics. We're here, Doc. What's the mission where you need all three of us to do it? Shigo said bluntly, as Kim and Monique were as curious as her but had more tact when speaking. As blunt as ever. It seems has invented a new machine that he intends to use on the entire state of Delaware if his demands aren't met, she said, showing various photos on the screen behind her. One of the short villain, another with his new device which looked like your run-of-the-mill doomsday device, and the state of Delaware as a whole. Any idea what this thing does? Or what he's going to do with it? Monique said, looking at the device in question. Squashing any idea of life-threatening in terms of weaponry? She shook her head saying, your guess is as good as mine, though I do know he is situated in the Nevada mountains. All I know is that you have to destroy it before he uses it, understood? They nodded, letting them leave, taking an experimental jet, squashing a feeling of unease. Nevada mountains? What is it with villains and their mountain bases? Monique asked quietly as they traversed their way up the mountain and was sneaking through the handmade base. Kim and Shigo looked each other in the eye and shrugged, with Shigo saying, your guess is as good as mine. I've worked for Dr. D for as long as I can remember, and all his bases have been in some cave, mountain, or abandoned castle. Never understood why. Monique was skeptical of all this and would have asked Kim if she was serious if it hadn't have been for, well, if it isn't mine arch nemesis Kim Possible and her two friends. Give up now and come out, Dementor. The world-saving heroine said, getting a laugh as the lights came on, showing the three women were surrounded by a dozen henchmen, each wielding shock batons and blunt objects as they wore those power rings that boosted the wearer's physique. Get them! The villain shouted as they charged, making the three women sigh, seeing as this was the same routine for every bad guy they faced. It didn't take long to beat them as Shigo dropped the last one while their backs were turned. Dementor came out of hiding from behind the unknown device. I must say, ladies, you are something. But now say hello to my Dimension Ray. He shouted, causing the three to cover their ears from how loud he got. Let me guess. You're going to use that to send Nevada to some unknown dimension should your demands not be met? Monique asked, getting a nod from the height-challenged villain. That's right, and it will go off in a matter of moments, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. He laughed as the crime fighters dashed when Shigo blasted him with a low-powered plasma ball that knocked him out. Monique, see if you can't cut it off, Kim shouted as she ran to the device, hoping she can remove the power supply before it went off. I can't, though I can change its position to here, so we might want to run, she said in a hurry when the entrance caved him thanks to Dementor, who ran out of the emergency exit. Goodbye, Kim Possible. We will not be meeting again. He shouted as he flew from his escape jet as the timer started to hit 0. Everything went white when the debris started to fall. Forest outside of the village. Man, doesn't he know it's rude to keep a lady waiting? Men these days have no manners, Naruko thought when she continued to feel this burning, warping sensation in the pit of her stomach, when in a brief flash of light 3 young women who were possibly her age came from the light in tattered uniforms of some kind that was tattered. Who are they? And where did they come from? She thought, seeing their features change slightly. The green-skinned girl's skin became slightly lighter while the redhead's hair became wilder like her own as all 3's nails grew sharp and tails and ears sprouted from their heads and spines. He heard them wake up as they looked around in wonder when they turned to her. She said, "Are you 3 all right?" Shigo's POV. Who the hell is this girl and why are we in the middle of a forest? I thought, laying eyes on the raven-haired beauty, making me halt my thoughts. Raven-haired beauty, where did that come from? Are you three all right? She asked, making me nodded as Kimmy and Monique came to with her, asking the same thing of them, which they nodded when I noticed the fact that the girl was armed with 2 swords on her shapely hips. She sighed in relief, saying, "Oh, thank goodness, I was worried I was going to have to bury 3 young girls. I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Naruko Uzumaki Uchiha Namikaze Senju, age 16. Rank genin in Konohagakure no Sato." I and the others raised an eyebrow at that, wondering what the hell does she mean by village hidden in the leaves? And what did she mean by 3 young girls? I was about to speak when she straightened up. "Quick, hide, I'll answer all questions you may have later," she said quickly as she ushered the 3 of us behind a bush in a hurry, with her taking the same position, resting against a tree with a large parchment resting next to her. "Naruko, what do you think you're doing, stealing the forbidden scroll?" a tanned man said, who looked like one of those older brother type of guys. He had his hair in a ponytail with a scar across his nose. The young girl scratched the back of her head and said, "Hey Ruka ni-san. I expected Mizuki to be here, but I guess you're going to give me my test, huh? Well, here it is, I got the scroll. Does that mean I got my promotion?" I had to hand it to the girl. Either she was one hell of an actress or she was seriously an idiot. And what's with this burning sensation in my eyes? It hurts worse than when Kimmy kicked me into that pylon tower. Monique POV: "Okay, let me assess the situation. We were trying to escape Dementor's base when the thing blew up with us in the center of it and ended up in some random forum place. When a cute little girl appears in front of us saying how she'd hate to bury 3 young girls. I mean, I knew we took good care of ourselves, but we were either in our early 30s or late 20s when she suddenly gets pushed through some bushes, and watch the girl lie her ass off. And why do my eyes burn so much?" Kim's POV: "Okay Kim, think you and the others were trying to escape Dementor's lair as it was about to blow up when the cannon exploded, sending us here. A beautiful girl claims we're younger and in some place I've never heard of. This may so be the drama," I thought, when another man appeared with silver hair, giving off that pretty boy look, though he gave off this aura that made him a creep. I was sure Monique and Shigo was listening in on the conversation that went on between the 3 of them. "Ah, Naruko, I see you got the scroll. Now hand it to me and you will get your promotion." "Naruko, don't listen to him, he's lying to you. He wants the scroll for himself, take it and run," the scarred man shouted as the man in the tree grew a sneer when he tossed an oversized shuriken at them. With the man taking the blow to the back. "Iruka ni," the girl said to her apparent older brother figure, when Mizuki's smile grew larger as he said something that made me curious. "Naruko, do you want to know a secret? Have you ever wanted to know why you're hated by everyone in the village?" he said as the scarred man's eyes grew wider, while Naruko had a look of recognition till it was masked with fake intrigue. "A secret? What is it? Tell me," she shouted as Iruka tried to get him to stop, only to fail. "You see, 16 years ago on October 10th the 9-tailed fox attacked the village. I'm sure you know the story, right?" he said, making me get a bad feeling mixed with rage for some reason crawl into my stomach. "Yay, the 4th Hokage killed it that night, everyone knows that," she said, though the look in her beautiful amethyst eyes showed he wanted him to say the right thing for a different reason. When I paused, "Beautiful amethyst eyes? I mean, yeah, she has beautiful eyes and looks breathtaking. What's wrong with me?" My thoughts were cut off when the man in the tree reached for another one of his shurikens, saying, "That was all a lie made by the Sandame who outlawed anyone mentioning that night. The truth is you are the 9-tailed fox." My eyes went wide. How could that girl be a giant monster? I mean, yay, I've dabbled in Japanese folklore and mythology, and the 9 tails was one of 10 and the second strongest of the demonic creatures known as the Biju, who were forces of nature. I couldn't believe it until the girl laughed. Standard, ha 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 ha. "Ah, you have no idea how idiotic you sound, Mizuki. You see, I knew of the 9 tails being sealed inside me, but due to some celestial interference I've become something stronger than the 9 tails. But Mizuki, for attempted theft of the Forbidden Scroll and revealing an S-rank secret as ordered by the Sandame Hokage of Konogakure no Sato. Your sentence is death," she said in a serious tone, standing up as she created a clone that took Iruka to the bush where she hid the 3 girls as they waved to him slightly, which they returned. Mizuki was unsettled until his bravado returned as he said, "Hey, like the demon bitch can do anything. Once I kill you the village will see me as a hero. Who knows, maybe I'll pay your demon slut a visit?" As those words left his lips, the area became heavy with killer intent as they saw a massive 10-tailed vulpine figure as her sclera turned black. She growled as her fangs grew larger. She said, "You know, I was just going to capture you and have the Hokage give the final verdict, but now you're going to die." She vanished from everyone's view as he was sent flying a little past where Iruka and the others were when she appeared under him. Once he got back up onto his feet, he was sent vertically into the air with her under him. She made a kick to the side which he blocked as she made another kick to his other side, bringing herself over him as she hit him several times with a few punches. As they were closer to the ground, he was met with a kick to the solar plexus. She stalked towards him when she heard, "Naruko, stop." Turning to him and the others, all they saw in her eyes was rage. She go POV whoa, and here I thought I was frightening when I was pissed, but she took it to a new level, though he had it coming, threatening to someone she cares about. But for some reason I didn't feel fear seeing that look in her eyes. It just looked mesmerizing as her eyes were glowing a faint purple with the flecks of dark red wisps swam in her eyes. Regular POV Naruko just stared at Iruka for a moment when she turned her attention back to Mizuki as she made her way to him when Iruka shouted, "Naruko, stop, he's lost." She sighed, saying, "I'm not going to kill the sniveling worm. If I wanted to, he would be a bloody smear here in the forest while the wildlife had a buffet. I'm just going to place him in a containment scroll and give him to the Hokage so he can give the punishment. Plus these three need somewhere to stay, seeing as they have no identity here in the village, and we gotta figure out how they got here in the first place." Turning to her older brother figure as her eyes were stoic once more with a hint of concern, she asked, "Are you okay enough to walk?" He struggled, showing he couldn't as she created 4 clones. One removed the shuriken in his back and picked him up as the clones had turned to them. "Can you 3 walk?" she asked, getting a shake from them, letting them pick the girls up, eliciting a blush from the redhead and green-haired teen. Turning her head slightly, she said, "Hold on, you 3, we're taking the express route." Before they could say anything, Naruko and her clones took off through the trees as Monique was screaming at the top of her lungs, getting a chuckle from her and the others. Leaf Village Hokage's office. "Mission accomplished, Hokage-sama," Naruko said as her clones tended to Iruka and the 3 mysterious girls' injuries. As the 3 girls were mystified by what she was doing, to their surprise all 3 felt their chakra reserves and control and were curious and shocked. Shocked because they had reserves comparable to that of an Anbu captain, which was growing at a steady rate. While curious that they acted that they had no clue to what it was she was doing, like it's the first time they've seen someone use chakra. He nodded, saying, "Excellent job, Naruko, your mission pay will be placed in your account by tonight. Iruka, you can go and rest up." Iruka nodded. After hugging Naruko, he disappeared in a puff of smoke again, to their shock and disbelief. Taking a puff of his pipe, he addressed the 3 women, "Now, Naruko tells me you 3 suddenly appeared out in the forest in a flash of light. Do either of you know where you were or how you got here?" The 3 girls were silent until Shigo stepped forward, saying, "Me and my 2 friends were on a mission to stop a madman who intended to use a device to send a state to another dimension. We stopped him, but we couldn't turn it off, thinking we had it self-destruct, and tried to run. When something went wrong, resulting in you 3 being sent here as a result." He surmised, getting nods from them as he and Naruko shared a look. Thinking, he said, "Well, girls, without any proof I can't really do much to help you, and from what you told me you're incapable of returning. While Naruko and I are sympathetic to your situation, there isn't much we can do to help you except have you join our military as genin as a safety measure." Curious Monique said, "Safety measures?" He nodded. "That's right. You see, miss, the village is a military village and don't take too well to invaders. Even though we believe you, we don't have proof to back up your claim, meaning should this be brought up to the council, you're at their mercy, which will end in 2 ways. Either you become slaves and possible breeding stock for someone, or killed as possible spies from another village." The 3 obviously didn't like that idea, as Kim asked, "Be one of your kunoichi, was it? What happens then?" He leaned back as his serious facade vanished, being replaced with a grandfatherly personality, putting the 3 at ease as Naruko sat on the side quietly. "Well, 1, you would be free as a bird, taking missions from me in a team with someone I chose. And as new inhabitants of the Leaf, you will be staying with someone who could help teach you properly and help you get up to standards as a fighter, and you would only take orders from me and the Junin in charge of you." Shigo being the curious girl she was, said, "And who would watch over us and teach us what we need to know." He gestured to Naruko, who had her brow raised in a curious manner, saying as he pulled out her file from the training every Junin and Anbu put her through. Why Naruko here? Even though she was made a genin recently, she is one of my strongest kunoichi right after my last student who is one day in the running for Hokage. Naruko Uzumaki Uchiha Namikaze Senju rank. Genin, official. Unofficial. Kage age. 16 blood type. O positive ninjutsu. High Kage. Taijutsu. High Kage Fuinjutsu. Uzumaki Seal Master Genjutsu. High Anbu Captain. Kenjutsu. High Kage Bloodlines. Sharingan, Uchiha. Rinnegan, Uzumaki. Heavenly Body. Namikaze. Perfect Chakra Control, Senju. Jubigan, Jubi. Notes. Is the daughter of Minato Namikaze the 4th Hokage and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze the Red Death. On the day of her birth 8 lights collected from the sky and hit her as an infant, making her no longer the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, but the new Nidaime Jubi. When she took to training as a child, she grew at an exponential rate. Her senses were enhanced by several levels. Her reserves continue to grow to where they already dwarf the Kyuubis by an unbelievable margin. She is known to have 4 forms: a human form, a Hanyu form, a full demon form, and mini form. Takes to anything she's shown with barely any difficulty, from taijutsu to kenjutsu. As she has been training as a child, she already grew to surpass every junin in the village, but refuses on account of wanting to grow with the others. To say they were surprised by her skills was an understatement. Not needing any more evidence, they agreed to it as he gave the 3 girls their headbands as she sunshined them to her home Namikaze estate. When they appeared in front of her home, the 3 girls dry heaved, feeling their stomachs catch up to them, making her snigger, saying, "Sorry about that, I meant to warn you about that for first-timers. Come on, tomorrow we're going to start your training and get you some clothes, but till then you can wear some of my clothes tomorrow." They glared at her for the late reminder, only for her to brush them aside as they followed her into the large home. As Shigo whistled at the home. "Nice place you got here, Naruko." She nodded, leading them past a decent-sized photo of her parents, saying, "Thanks, this place originally belonged to my parents before they died." Curious Monique asked, "What happened to them?" Clapping her hands, they heard the sound of paws on the wood when she was tackled by a moderate-sized fox pup that was pitch black, with white paws and tips on its ears and tail. Holding her, Naruko said, "Hey Kuroka-chan, mommy's home, you miss me?" The kit yipped as she licked her, then jumping around Monique and the others she giggled, "It seems she likes you." Kim was petting her when Monique asked, "Is that odd for her to like somebody?" She nodded, "Yes, it is. She can be real protective of me, even though I've been raising her since her mom died, protecting her from some hunters. Whenever somebody is near me, she goes in defense mode, ready to claw your throat out." That unsettled the 3 girls as she led them to the kitchen, sitting them down, getting started on dinner. She had 3 clones prepare a meal for all of them. While the clones cooked, she said, "All right, seeing as the 3 of you were practically quiet save for the obvious questions regarding your political situation here, anything you want to ask?" It was quiet for a moment until Kim spoke. "Yes, you said that this was Konogakure no Sato? What is that?" Leaning back with her arms over her head, she said, "Well, that's a easy question. You see, the elemental nations as a whole are split into several sections. The one we live in is the Land of Fire, or Hai no Kuni. There are other countries as well. As I train you 3, I will be teaching you the historical stuff as well, so I'll give you the rundown. Here in Hai no Kuni, the country as a whole is led by the Fire Daimyo. He runs the country in its entirety and has sovereign rule over the villages within its walls, such as here Konogakure no Sato." Drinking some water a clone brought, she said, "And the second leader of Hai no Kuni's military power of the shinobi village is the Hokage. He calls the shots concerning the ninja in the village. There are times when the daimyo will come and take command in times of crisis." Summing everything up, Shigo said, "So it's kinda like the president and the vice president?" Getting what she meant, Naruko nodded, saying, "That's correct. Any other questions?" This time it was Monique who spoke. "What all will we be learning from you within the month? I mean, besides the history stuff?" A sick grin Kim would usually see on Shigo appeared on her face, unnerving the 3, making Shigo think, "Is this how Dr. D felt whenever I thought something that wouldn't be good for him but pleasant for me?" She said with the smile still present, "Well, besides working on your chakra control and reserves, your taijutsu, and teaching you the basic 3 jutsu to become a genin, along with your accuracy with throwing weapons, it's all up to you, as the shinobi are very versatile. There are those who train in all fields like myself. Or you can work on fuinjutsu, ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu, medical ninjutsu, kenjutsu, or multiple roles. I've trained in them all. Just tell me what you're going to focus on. Though that doesn't mean we can't leave your other fields open. What I mean is, even though someone has picked out their specialties, that doesn't mean they'll leave themselves open because someone has them outgunned. Say you chose genjutsu and kenjutsu. Someone gets in close and takes away your weapon and keeps you from using your genjutsu. How are you going to fight? She said, clearing things up as she snapped her fingers in Kim and Shigo's faces, watching them fall over themselves. Admittedly, she would do that to Hinata, but they were mates. It was to be expected. But for someone else to look at her like that was nice, to feel desired by someone. Shigo then spoke after gathering her bearings. Okay, but what about the ears and tails? I mean, we didn't have these before we got here. Now that's a tough one. I would have to make a guess and say that when you were between dimensions, your bodies couldn't handle the transfer and your body began to fall apart. At some point you picked up on my signature where you inadvertently became my mates, or just copied my DNA to a degree, Naruko said as she showed her 10 tails and ears as her pupils became slitted while her nails became claws. Yes, as you see, you became half demons. I wouldn't be surprised if you gained one of my bloodlines. And before one of you ask how are we going to learn all that in a month, which sounds like it could take years, I'll show you tomorrow, but for now rest up because we got to get you clothes and proper gear, she said as her clones finished cooking a small meal consisting of miso soup with grilled fish and rice. The meal was wonderful in their opinion as the three girls ate it with vigor as clones brought clothes down for the three of them to wear as she herself walked into a spare room to change. Now, instead of her normal gear, she now wore sweatpants with her fishnet shirt showing her assets, and her hair was done in a spiky ponytail. Kim wore a similar outfit with the same physique, except her bust was slightly lower than Shigo's, reaching high CC. As Monique settled for a standard flannel shirt with her pants, though you could see she had an excellent physique that showed she took care of getting their attention as Monique said, "Damn girl, what's with the sleepwear?" Letting them feel it, they honestly couldn't believe it as it did feel comfortable and thought to buy some when they get the chance. Alright, now let's all head to bed. I'll show you three where you can sleep, she said, leading them up the stairs as she led them all to a separate room, with all of them being near her room. If you need anything, my room is right here, she said, gesturing to the oak door she was leaning against as she slinked inside with Kuroka in her arms, saying, "Night, girls." Nothing more was said as the three new inhabitants quickly fell asleep as the weight of today finally hit as they thought of what could be going on back home. GJ Base. What the hell you mean you can't find them? Shouted at Wade, who vigorously typed away at the computer showing their last location as he sighed in irritation. I didn't say I can't find them, what I meant was that their beacons say they're in Japan, though the signal seems like it's split, he said, staring at the screen. What do you mean split? She said, confused as she raised an eyebrow looking at their signals as they seemed to waver between stable and unstable. Split. As in they here and somewhere else. My guess is when used his device it sent them to a world parallel to our own, though they weren't sent to a place that is parallel to where his base was but to somewhere in the forest areas of Japan, he said, showing her where the explosion was and where their signals show now, in the heart of the grossly unpopulated forest regions of Japan. Is there any way you can get in touch with them or to bring them back? She asked with hope, making him sigh, scratching the back of his head. It will take a bit of time, and I gotta get in touch with a few people to give me a hand as dimensional travel is out of my league, and to rebuild the machine needs to be repaired as well, the computer genius said as she sighed in irritation. How long would all of that take? She asked, rubbing her forehead. At the most, to get the machine working, a couple months max. To get their precise coordinates and which dimension they've been sent to, it could take at the least another 6 months to a year, he said, making her think it over as he said it all. With no hesitation she ordered, "Then get to work and get those connections. The sooner we find those girls, the faster we can save them." He nodded as he started calling a few people as Betty walked out of the lab, thinking, Kim, Monique, Shigo, I hope you two are safe. Wherever you are, Namikaze Estate, Naruko-chan, you gotta wake up. And possibly fill me in as to why you have 3 women living in our home, she heard her mate and love Hinata say as she shook her gently. Hina-chan, 5 more minutes and I'll explain, she mumbled, dragging Hinata under the covers with her arms around Hinata. She struggled, but it was useless as Naruko had a firm grip on her as she nuzzled her face into Hinata's neck, saying, "Just sleep, Hinaheim. They're still asleep. I know you noticed. Just stay with me for a little longer. I missed your warmth and I will explain later. She continued to struggle only to hear Naruko whimper in her sleep, causing her to calm down, sighing. She always did hate being alone. At night since that day, she turned to face her as she somehow got Naruko on her back and laid her head into the crook of her neck, causing the whimpers to stop while she kissed her neck. Without anything being said, the two fell asleep in each other's arms to rest before their two guests come to. Half-hour later. Yo Naruko girl, you awake in there? The two heard from the other side of the door as Hinata woke up first, shaking Naruko. What is it? She said, giving a one-eyed glare at the door as she heard more knocking from her bedroom door. Yo Naruko, you awake? She heard the voice again. After a moment she recognized it as Monique, making her sigh as she stretched, popping her back. Yeah, I'm awake, Monique, just give me a minute to get cleaned up, okay? She asked as the knocking stopped when a sigh of relief came from the other end. Alright then, me and the others are going to be in the kitchen making breakfast, alright. Also, we found a new pair of sandals by the door. Do we have a guest? She asked. Yay, that's Hinata-chan and she's in here with me, she said while nudging Hinata, getting her to respond. Hello Monique-san. Hinata said aloud good-naturedly. Nice to meet ya. Though it would be easier if I saw you face to face. I'll tell the girls to get another plate for you if you want. She asked Hinata, who gave an affirmative. That would be nice, thank you, she said as they heard Monique's footsteps fade down the hall. She seems nice, Hinata-chan? Naruko asked, only to get a slight glare from her as she sighed, kissing her lightly. Nada-chan, they had just got to the village and had nowhere to sleep due to some certain events that I will let them explain when we go downstairs. While Monique doesn't have those feeling for me, if last night was anything to go by, then her two friends Kim and Shigo both have a growing attraction towards me, she said as Hinata's glare melted. Alright. I know that with you being the last and rightful heir of two clans and the cousin of Tsunade-sama, you're going to have to repopulate them. It's just that since you've marked me, I've been territorial and don't want some random woman trying to take you away from me, she said as she felt Naruko kiss her tenderly with her arms around Naruko's. Pulling her lips up to Hinata's ear, she whispered, We've got a bit of time before the others finish cooking. Let's take a shower and I'll show you how much I love you. She moaned as every syllable Naruko uttered made her tongue flick her earlobe. She felt herself grow wetter and nodded as she was carried into the bathroom by Naruko, who was giving off a primal aura as her pupils became slits. Sorry I got a little rough with you, Nadaheim. I didn't mean to go overboard, Naruko said sheepishly as she used a shadow clone to wash herself while Naruko started to bathe Hinata. Feeling Naruko's claws brush her scalp, she moaned, saying, It's fine, like I said, I thought that they were going to take you from me. Though now in hindsight it was foolish of me to think that even though you're the heiress to 3 clans and the daughter of the 4th Hokage, it is necessary to have multiple wives. If those 2 would like to be with you, then I won't object. She nodded, hugging Hinata from behind, and said, Thank you, Nadaheim, now let's get cleaned up, we have guests to entertain. Agreeing, the two began to finish up and get dry kitchen. Something smells good, Naruko said, coming downstairs. Wearing clothes similar to ones she wore last night, while Hinata wore a similar pair of clothes like yesterday. Thanks, after years of cooking classes I can finally make a decent standard meal, Kim said as Monique and Shigo groaned, remembering being her test subjects for her cooking that wasn't a pleasurable experience for them. Girls, this is Hinata. Hinata from right to left is Shigo, Monique and Kim, Naruko said as they were introduced one by one. Now Hinata, as I told you earlier, these girls are in a situation that we can remedy, but we have to fill you in, she said as they all went into how Kim and her friends got into the elemental nations and their changes in age and went from human, meta-human to half-demons. So let me get this straight, you 3 are from a dimension parallel to our own except for the fact that you're technologically more advanced, she said, getting a nod. The 3 of you are part of a spy organization run by this Betty director, where Kim was being trained to be her replacement when on your last mission went wrong, resulting in you 3 being sent across dimensions, she continued, getting another series of nods. And when you came to the village, your bodies regressed in age. While your bodies became unstable and you copied the signature of the strongest being near you, which was Naruko, she said, pointing to said multi-clan heiress, getting yet again another SN. You became half-demons. She took you to the Hokage, who was also aware of this, and said either face prison as enemy spies or become Leaf Kunoichi, where you are personally trained by Naruko. Within the month when teams are being made, she said, looking at Naruko, who gave her a puppy dog pout. Please Haim, you're better at the technical stuff like history, and we've got to get them training in the shinobi tactics and their affinities depending on what fields they would prefer in," she said in a puff of smoke when it cleared. A chibi Naruko appeared in her lap giving a large puppy pout with the glistening eyes and quivering lip included. "Wow, and here I thought I was bad with that, and here I thought Kimmy was the only one who did that. How the hell did she get her eyes to get that big?" the three thought, watching as Hinata's resolve slowly broke under the cuteness while hugging her. Grumble asterisk. "Fine, you win. I'll help with the training, but to get them up to speed and able to control their new strength will take quite a while unless you're using your mom's special training ground to get all that done," she said, getting a nod. "Yup, we're using my mom's special training ground to train these three with. How long it takes once we get them situated with gravity and resistance seals, chakra draining seals and extra seals. You girls will be stronger than you ever were before," she said, looking at them. Shigo had a look that liked the idea of being stronger. Kim was interested in how the training ground would work, and Monique was wondering what possible hell she got herself into. "So let's get started because you won't be seeing the light of day for some time in the training grounds," Naruko said, pulling out some scrolls from her pockets. Naruko, how long are we going to be in there for exactly?" Monique asked cautiously when she saw both their host and her friend share a grin she would normally see on Shigo when it involves pain. "Oh, just around 31 years, she said nonchalantly, getting incredulous looks from the three girls. "What, 31 years? We meet the Hokage in a month just to pass his test, and you say training is going to take 31 years? Monique said abruptly. Getting a light tap on the nose by Naruko, she said, "That is where the beauty of the training ground comes in. Through the use of fuinjutsu and space-time manipulation, jutsu time moves faster in the training ground than it does in the real world. So 31 days here is 31 years in the training ground, where every day is one whole year. This will help us in terms of training you three, so you can not only get adjusted to your yukai and newfound strength, but will also help as a place where you want to train in new techniques you've been working on that you don't people to know of." Gesturing to the door by the stairs, she said, "Well, come on, let's get a move on. We've got 31 years to get you three up to snuff." They cleaned the dining room table and headed towards the training room, where they came across a large underground land where the entire field was a mountain range with a large lake off in the distance and a clear blue sky even though they were underground. Near the lake was a large house big enough for a large group, which Naruko led them towards. "Well, ladies, this here will be your personal hell for the next 31 years, and in those 31 years I won't be your friend, I will be your teacher. So first and foremost strip," Naruko said, getting shocked looks from the three girls. What?" Kim asked, blushing profusely, with Shigo being no better while Monique had the decency to blush. She slowly started to comply. Getting their hesitation, she elaborated, "I'm sure by now you've already felt the change in gravity. This is a specialized training ground that will be used for the time being. The seals I'm going to put on you are gravity and resistance seals to make you body heavier and harder to move." Kim asked, "How does that work?" "The gravity seals will act as a multiply by taking your body weight and multiplying that by Earth's gravity with a multiplier of 2. While the resistance seals will make your body more difficult to move to build up strength in your body and your speed. Once your body have gotten used to the current level, it will instantly increase in level to keep you on your toes," she explained, seeing Kim take an interest in seals. Once she answered their questions, all three were naked as she applied the various seals, including her newest invention, the copy-proof seal, to prevent an opponent with the ability to copy what they do from achieving it. She also placed them on their clothes, including growth seals and repair seals. "All right, and this is what we're going to be doing for the month. Every day you're going to make as many shadow clones as possible. Those will be split to do the following," Hinata said, bringing out a large board showing the following studies of the elemental nations and the village laws. Clones needed, 20 to 30. Taijutsu training, chakra control training. Clones needed, as many as possible. Ninjutsu training. Clones needed, as many as possible. Genjutsu training. Clones needed, as many as possible. Fuinjutsu training. Clones needed, 10 to 20. Weapons training. Clones needed, 10 to 20. Once you've got the basics down and you think on what you want to focus on the most as professions, then we will work from there. Understood?" she asked, getting nods making her smile. "Excellent, so let's get started," she exclaimed as they began the 31 years of hell training. Overview: 30 years Naruko and Hinata spent training Kim, Monique and Shigo in the shinobi arts as they learn to adjust to their demonic abilities as well. After learning, the more they use it, the more they lose their humanity and become a full demon. They also awakened and mastered the dujutsu they've gained from Naruko as well in that time span. At first the three girls were excited about going out and kicking ass until Naruko and Hinata had to pop their bubbles, saying that while that is what they do, fresh genin don't do missions like that all the time. They gotta do the grunt work first and foremost until their Junin says they're ready for higher ranking missions. It was safe to say that they weren't all too thrilled about being someone's dog walker or local kid fence painting service. Today was their final day of training as the group of 5 finished training. Special training ground. Ugh girl, how long have you used those seals? When you hit me it felt like I've gotten ran over by a mountain? Monique asked as they all finished their 30 years straight of training. Well, let's see, I've known how to walk since I was 3. Ever since then, along with the gravity seals. Don't tell me you can't take a little tough love, Mo. Naruko said, placing her arm around Monique's shoulder in a friendly manner. Tough love, my fine ass. That was potential homicide and you know it, she retorted good-naturedly, getting a laugh from Naruko, and the others laughed. Ah, come on Monique, it wasn't that bad when you get used to it, Kim said next to her as they all walked out of the training ground. As long as we're finished, but how long have we been in there? She said, walking to the couch, plopping down next to Kim, who was petting Kuroka. At least 30 days. Which means we have 2 days to relax and get you girls some clothes, so rest up because tomorrow I'm taking you to get some proper gear, Naruko said, falling asleep on the recliner as Hinata fell asleep with her while the others passed out on the couch. Next morning. Wakey girls, time to start the new day, Naruko said, getting 3 groans in return as they got up. I never knew how much I could miss something so much like a couch until I've slept on Earth for 30,000 years, Kim said, getting a chuckle. You 3 really aren't the morning types, are you? Hinata said, sitting at the counter sipping on a cup of coffee as the 3 jolted up at the smell. Getting their cups after cleaning up, Shigo asked. So where are we going to go for clothing and gear? I wouldn't think they have a general supply store for weapons and such. The 2 kunoichi laughed as Naruko sour, not too far off. There are shinobi stores for clothing and gear. And we're going to a friend of ours for supplies. She's got the best forge. Weapons and clothes even a genin can afford. Well then, let's get a move on. The sooner we get our supplies, the sooner we can relax before we get our teams, Monique said as they nodded, with Kuroka hopped on her shoulder as they walked out the door. Higarashi's weapon shop. The walk to the weapon store was a tortuous experience. As they walked through the village, Monique and the others heard every harsh whisper and saw every glare sent Naruko's way, and they had to keep themselves from mauling the civilians and some of the shinobi. The other group was too busy ogling them as they leered at them perversely, making their skin crawl, but it was worth it to see the large supplies of weapons and clothing they had in store. Walking inside, the bell above their door rang as a petite youth with her hair in buns said, dully looking at a magazine, "Welcome to Higarashi's weapon shop, where if it breaks it ain't Higarashi's. What can I do ya for today?" Sneaking up close where lips were near Tenten's ear, she purred, "Ah, Ten-chan, is that any way to treat a friend so cold?" The brunette jolted upright as she turned to see Naruko behind the counter with her smiling innocently while she glared. "Damn it Naruko, you know I hate it when you do that. Always toying with me. And where have you been? I haven't seen you at all this month," she said, getting a shrug. "We have 3 new kunoichi here who needed help adjusting to things, and I was chosen to do it. They just passed my training and will be given their teams soon. We came to get them their proper equipment and clothing," the demoness said, gesturing to Kim, Monique and Shigo. Turning to them, she said, "Girls, I would like to introduce you to Konoha's up-and-coming fine weapon mistress, Tenten Higarashi's and daughter to Kazuki Higarashi's, owner of this here weapon store. Speaking off, where is your old man?" She just shrugged after brushing aside her blush. She said, "He said he was going to the Land of Iron to find out why we haven't been receiving materials for weapons as of late. Though he's been gone for about a week and I haven't heard from him yet." Hugging her, she said, "I wouldn't worry about your old man, Panda-chan. He's a tough old bastard who gives Junin a tough time. And he's no pushover with a sword either, or any weapon for that matter." She nodded as she said, "Anyways, tomorrow's the team placements and we got to get you 3 equipped with the proper gear. Naruko, your orders were finished last week. You know where they are, Hinata, and I will go get these 3 properly equipped." Naruko watched as Tenten and Hinata lead the three kunoichi through the weapon and shinobi gear while she walked through the back door into the smith room. With Tenten and the girls. So girls, where did you come from? Tenten said, finishing taking measurements as Hinata wrote them down. We're from. Monique started as Tenten held her hand to her face. And don't give me some half-baked story like you're new to the village, because I think every village would be after women who had rare elemental affinities such as yourselves, she said, giving them a stare. How did you? Hinata asked, surprised as she turned her focus to Bluenet. Hinata, who do you think was also trained by her, huh? Even though I focus on weapons, I don't let my skills as a sensor dull. I felt their signature while training last month. So I'll ask again, where are you from? Tenten said more forcefully, making the girls tell her the truth. Smith room. Walking in the back on the door was a set of twin pistols and a pair of fingerless glove gauntlets where on each finger was metal cylinders that went up to the knuckle with a jewel on the center with a kanji in the center of the jewel, as it was embedded with adamantium alloy much like the rest of the gauntlet, making them indestructible. Same for the chakra conductive wire. Putting them on, the gauntlets went up to her elbow while the metal was thick on her arms, but she had no trouble keeping her arms up from the weight, telling her that these were used as the same material as the sword sealed into her arm and the twin pistols on the table. The guns were something as well. In terms of firearms, while only seen usually in the land of snow, they were massive to say the least. Twin 13mm combat anti-freak pistols that were 39 centimeters long, weighed 16 kilograms total. They had bullets, but they were also chakra conductive, where you could focus your chakra, either pure or element based as well. Looking the weapons over as she smiled, saying, "Old man, another couple of masterpieces as usual." Writing a note with a scrap paper that was nearby, she placed it on his table, walking out with the guns in the storage scroll in the palms of her hands. Back up front. So you're from another dimension parallel to our own, except humans can't use their natural energy but are focused on technology. And you came here after confronting a maniac who was hell-bent on world domination and threatened to send a continent to another dimension when you stopped him at the risk of you getting caught in exchange? Tenten surmised, getting a nod from the four women. That's right, Panda-chan, I hope you can keep this quiet for the time being. The less who know about all this the better, okay? Naruko said from behind her, getting a nod before a sly smile came forward. And what do I get out of it? She asked, getting a smirk. Your pick, but it has to be reasonable. Nothing outrageous, all right? Naruko said, getting a nod and a kiss on the cheek before bringing all their soon-to-be-purchased goods to the counter. The total will be 7.5 ryo, but with Naruko's discount as a dealer in seals, your total is now 5.0 ryo even, Tenten said as she finished. Could you put it on my bill? I know that I'm going to be getting my pay from the seals I've sold soon, and I'll get to paying it when your old man returns, she explained, getting a nod. All right, Naruko, that works, and you will hear from me again soon, she said with a wink as she sealed away their stuff, walking back to the counter, swaying her hips, making her and Hinata chuckle as they all walked away. What's with that girl? Monique asked as she watched Tenten take her old position at the counter, being bored. Tenten is a real flirt when it involves me. Hinata and I grew up together as friends, even though she is a year older than me. She and I grew up in the same orphanage until she was adopted by Kazuki, she explained while they walked to their home. Why didn't he adopt you as well? Shigo asked as they plopped down on the couch, petting Kuroka. The civilian council, save for Sakura's mom, who was my mom's best friend, would give anything to see me suffer. They blame me for the Nine Tails attack and think I'm him given flesh. So for a while they banned me from stores and kicked me out of the orphanage since I was 3. When someone tries to adopt me, they would lose the papers or up the price to sign for adoption papers, she said, stretching, looking at the clock, seeing it was still early. So how did you survive for so long? Kim asked, hating the civilian council. Well, with the assistance of the Hokage, shinobi and clans who were friends of my parents, they looked after me when they could. When they couldn't, I had to deal with attacks from assassins hired by the civilians, and attacks made by them and civilian-born shinobi both. Of course, when I turned 5, I awakened my bloodlines and permanently hospitalized them. When I did, the old man let me live in my family compound, although I also had a scroll of family techniques to learn from as well, she said, getting up. I'll be right back and get some rest because tomorrow is team placements, Naruko said, walking out the door, leaving 4 confused women. Anyone know where that girl is going? Monique asked, getting a shake of the head from everyone. All right, just wanted to make sure I wasn't the only one, she said, returning to the book Naruko had lent her on Fuinjutsu while the others returned to what they were doing. Hokage's office, the visit? The village leader asked as he finished his paperwork. I have my report on Kim-chan, Monique-chan and Shigo-chan, she said, letting him sit up, folding his hands on his desk. And what would you say from your observations? Where do they stand in terms of shinobi? He asked. Taking a moment. It's to my surprise that before they started my training they had skill equivalent to a Junin in taijutsu alone, while Monique was low Chunin, and all three of them having chakra reserves comparable to that of an Anbu captain. He nodded and asked, and after your training? Where would you place them in terms of rank? It's safe to say that the three would be a waste as mere genin. If anything, I would place them as Tokubetsu Junin or Chunin. I've trained them in all shinobi fields and they all share a common place in taijutsu, kenjutsu, and ninjutsu. Though the three have some differences, she clarified, as he wasn't surprised as Naruko was one of his toughest up-and-coming kunoichi who he intended to be either a Chunin or Junin soon. What are these differences, Naruko-chan? Anything to worry about? He asked, getting a negative motion. No, nothing like that, Hokage-sama, but the three cover each other's weaknesses. Kim is a rising star in Fuinjutsu and medical ninjutsu, as I lent her a scroll from Tsunade-chan and she understood it in a week and mastered it in another week, clarifying that anything is possible for a possible. Though her kenjutsu is nothing to sneeze at, she said, getting a raised eyebrow from the aged leader. What does that mean? He asked, getting a shrug. It's her family's motto. It means that a possible can handle anything thrown their way. But her understanding in Fuinjutsu is the most surprising, as she leads me to believe that possibles are her worlds parallel to the Uzumaki, as she has as great understanding in Fuinjutsu as I did when I first started. Now he was surprised, as Naruko was the greatest seal master the elemental nations have ever seen, even greater than her parents, so to hear there was someone who understood it that well as her amazed him. Getting over his shock, he asked, and what about Shigo and Monique? What differences do they have? Shigo. Well, she's a more attractive female version of Guy and Lee, except she can make the green work. She started with a bit of drool, making him sigh, lightly tapping her forehead with his pipe. That was his surrogate granddaughter. For him, grows up just like any Uzumaki or a secret perv, no matter how professional they may seem. Sorry, as I was saying, she, like Guy and Lee, is a powerhouse in taijutsu and kenjutsu with reserves to throw a rank jutsu around like they're going out of style. I don't know if the chakra reserves they have is because of me or what, but all three also have either extinct affinities or new ones, but I'll get on that later. Her strength is nothing to sneeze at, as she made the ground compress in on itself when her fist hit the ground. Her stamina, she could last as long as me, really. Her kenjutsu, while rough, has its own eloquence to it, but she has past knowledge in the art, she said, seeing him have a smile, appreciating the thought of having more kenjutsu users in the village. And Monique, what of her, and in terms of teamwork, where would you place them? He asked, lacing his fingers together. Monique, she's like Kim and Shigo in profession. She, like Kim, has skill in Fuinjutsu and medical ninjutsu with her grace in kenjutsu, though she is similar to Shigo's ferocity in taijutsu, though she trumps her in grace with kenjutsu. If I had to judge their teamwork when they fought me and Hinata together in the past month, I would say that if this was the Third Great War, you'd have a duplicate of your old team without a rogue and a senseless perv, as they all understand that nothing stands above the team and would put life and limb to save for each other, she said, getting a hopeful smile, knowing that his team was at most a failure as one turned into a pervert and the other became a man who used people for his sick experiments. He nodded, saying, what of their affinities? Well, Monique has the Hashirama's fabled wood release and lava release. Shigo has a new affinity she calls plasma release, which by terms can do as much damage as her lava affinity. Kim, she has a storm and ice release as well, she said as he clarified. So Kim has an affinity for wind, water, lightning. Monique has water, earth, fire. And Shigo has fire, lightning, earth. He asked, getting a nod, unable to believe it that Naruko found three girls with rare affinities only seen in the other nations, one with a never-before-seen affinity and the affinity that once belonged to the first Hokage. Now Naruko, I have to ask you this, if you were given the chance to skip genin, would you take it? He asked honestly. Gigi, you know I don't like being seen as a brown-noser. I want to earn my rank like everyone else. If you can find at least Junin or Chunin to vouch for my promotion, then I will take it, but I would rather earn it from my own achievements, not because my village leader has favorites with his shinobi. she said, getting a nod as he pulled out several stacks of scrolls, causing a question mark to appear over her head. Gigi. What the hell are those? She asked, not quite understanding what she's seeing the large sum of scrolls. I had a feeling you'd say that, so I had this done when you finished your training and were tested by the various Anbu and Shinobi. Here are over 10,000 signatures from the Anbu and Shinobi who believes being a mere genin is beneath you. So I'll ask you again, will you take the position I'm going to give you? He asked in a grandfatherly tone. Seeing the honesty and the large pile of scrolls, she nodded. Hi Hokage-sama, I'll accept whatever position you think is best for me. He smiled as he pulled out another scroll. As he walked to the front of his desk, he said, Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze Uchiha Senju. I, on the request of the Junin and Anbu of Konoha and in my position of power, grant you the position of Tokubetsu Junin. When you come here tomorrow, you'll receive your partner who you will work with. Also tomorrow bring your friends to receive their ranks, all right? So I'm in an apprenticeship? She asked, getting a nod from the Hokage as she grabbed the scroll from him. She nodded, unsealing the vest to see it was a black Junin vest with red trimming. Putting it on, she smiled as saluted him as she vanished in a flash of black light. Sighing, he puffed on his pipe, looking at the photo of her father, imagining a portrait of her next to him with the same show of professionalism and command. Reclining in his seat, he exhaled a plume of smoke, thinking, yes, the future is going to be a grand one. I can see it now. The nations no longer opposing one another but a unified nation. I hope I live long enough to see that as a reality. The serious moment ended when he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a little orange book, giggling perversely as the assistant shook her head, walking away angry, mumbling about dirty old men. Namikaze home. Damn, where is that girl? She's been gone for an hour now, and no offense Hinata, but you, Shigo, me or Kim can't cook for shit. Monique said, getting an indignant, hey, from the two girls. What, I said no offense, didn't I? And I dare you to tell me that I'm wrong, she said, looking at the two, shy away from her stern glare, knowing she wasn't wrong. It's fine, Monique. To be honest, Naruko has taught me a bit about cooking, but I don't quite have the knack for it like her, she said when they all noticed a black flash of light as when it cleared. Naruko, how did you get that vest? She asked as everyone saw the black and red Junin vest on her person. Smiling, she said, apparently since I finished my training, the old man has been getting reviews from the various Junin and Anbu asking me to not be placed as a genin but as a higher rank. I opposed, but seeing everyone's responses I couldn't say no. Pulling out a scroll, it revealed thousands of smaller scrolls. Damn girl, all of these are from the shinobi here, she said, shocked, getting a nod. Yup, some save for Kakashi, wrote one, practically demanding I don't become a genin. Oh, tomorrow we're going to the Hokage, so be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, she said, getting a nod. Everyone's stomach growled as Shigo asked, first can we eat please? You're the only one who is able to cook something that doesn't turn into a gelatinous blob that has gained a sense of consciousness. She nodded, remembering the last time she let the three of them cook, as 6 out of 10 times she let them something bad happened. Time skip after dinner. Seriously Naruko, how in the hell do you cook this well? Monique asked, cleaning off her plate. To be truthful, I cooked as well as Kim did until Yamane-chan taught me when I was little, she said, remembering when she was little the ramen stand girl taught her how to cook. Wow, really? I wouldn't have figured, but it's time we all got some sleep. See you in the morning, everyone, Monique said, getting up, followed by Kim and Shigo as the two of them snuck a quick kiss to her cheek. Rubbing her cheek, she turned to Hinata as she sniggered, saying, we both know that the two of them got feelings for you, so I told them that if they want to they had my go-ahead, but for now I'm tired and I just want to sleep with you. Walking to Hinata, she wrapped her arms around her, gently kissing the nape of her neck, getting a moan. Well, let's head to bed, I'm exhausted and just want to sleep. The brunette nodded and walked up the stairs as the two fell asleep soundly. The next day, bang bang bang. Come on girls, it's time to get up, we got to get to the old man's office pronto, she said, getting 4-3 groans as Hinata was getting dressed. I am so not a morning person, Shigo said, wearing her new outfit, which consisted of a full-body fishnet suit and a pair of black Anbu-style pants with a deep green muscle shirt and a closed black kimono top with green lining on her hip was an odashi. Somebody was having some pretty intense dreams from what those moans were telling me, Kim said, walking out wearing a bodysuit that came to her thigh, while on top of that was a pair of Anbu-style pants and a dark purple vest, while a chikudo was secured on her hip. Like you're one to talk, I couldn't get any sleep with your moaning, damn it. Monique said, wearing Enbu-style pants with a black sleeveless muscle shirt and deep red kimono top with opera-style gloves and a long katana was secured on her back. The two girls blushed seeing Naruko's smirking face as she said, "Oh, and what were they moaning about, Mo?" The dark-skinned girl said, "Well, these two were dreaming about burgers," Kim said, getting a raised eyebrow from everyone as they looked at her weirdly. She blushed while walking down the stairs, getting a snigger from everyone else as Hinata kissed Naruko. She said, "I'll see you all later, alright, and good luck with whoever you four get placed with." As they watched her leave, Naruko said, "Let's get a move on, folks. Gotta show the old man that you're punctual." "Please don't tell me we're going to." Monique started with dread as she, Kim and Shigo were grabbed by Naruko as they vanished in a black flash. Hokage's office, the Junin present were put on guard as a black flash appeared in the middle of the office until they heard a snigger followed by 3 groans. "Naruko, you're a bitch, you know that?" Monique said, feeling her stomach catch up to her as she and the others did the same. "We're here, Hokage-sama, and I brought our newest kunoichi ready to receive their ranks," she said, standing in front of him. "Ah, Naruko-chan, Monique, Shigo and Kim, it's a pleasure to see you 3 again. Now we can begin," he said, pulling out 3 Chunin vests, giving them to the girls. "After evaluating Naruko's reports, the 3 of you will be a Chunin team working alongside Naruko and her teammate in," he was about to say when a black tarp popped up with the following attached. "The sexy and single Anko Midarashi," said. Junin was an attractive woman with pupil-less almond brown eyes with her purple hair worn in a pineapple hairstyle. Her clothes were modest to say the least, as she wore a fishnet bodysuit that went down to her knees while showing her proud D-cup bust and an orange leather miniskirt with a brown leather trench coat. "Ah, as I was saying, is going to be Naruko's partner, and the 2 of them will be your leaders until you 3 are deemed ready for a higher rank. Also, if the 5 of you can wait, the other Junin are going to be getting their teams now," he said as they watched the crystal ball academy classroom. "All right, now that the teams have been called," Iruka started as Sakura started. "But Iruka-sensei, Naruko Baka wasn't addressed and she isn't here," Sakura said, getting a sigh. "Naruko was chosen for an apprenticeship of sorts with a Junin. She has probably already met with them by now," he said, getting an uproar. "What, how does the clan less failure get special training while I have to work with slackers?" Sasuke said, getting a negative reaction. "First off, Uchiha Naruko has produced scores through the academy that hasn't been seen since your brother. Second, you lost to the clan less failure in every fight you've been in with her. What does that say about you?" Hinata said, getting in his face when he took a swing at her. She grabbed his arm and slammed him into the floor. "Don't even think about it, brat. Just because the civilians kiss your rotten ass doesn't mean I will let you talk down to somebody, you little shit," she growled as her Byakugan flared to life. "Hinata, calm down now. Your senseis are on the way to get you all. Good luck and I wish you all well," he said, walking out of the classroom as the class separated into their teams as each one was separated into their groups as the Junin all came to collect their students, save for Team 7 as Sasuke, Sakura and Sai, the boy who replaced Naruko, sat waiting. Hokage's office. "So Hokage-sama, what did you want that it had to wait for the other Junin to leave?" Naruko asked as she had her feet propped up on a coffee table as the others sat next to her. "You see, Naruko, as you and many of your fellow academy students know, the Uchiha is a flight risk since his clan's massacre," he started, getting a nod from her. "Well, it's common knowledge that he would do anything for power, going so far as to kill anyone who would prevent him from it," he said, getting a more solemn nod from the humanized Biju. "Yeah, I know Makoto-chan is rolling in her grave seeing how he is. But let me guess, you want me to eliminate him should he betray the village?" she said, getting a nod. "You do know that the civilians are going to throw a huge stink over this, right? I mean, not that I care what the civilians think, as I know that when a powerful person shows up and does something, he's going to follow that person." She paused for a second. "Orochimaru's coming. That's the only reason you tell me this, because I'm the guy's worst nightmare, especially when he gave me this little number back when I was a kid with one of his summons," she said, showing a 3 tomo in a circle on a ring placed on her right shoulder. He nodded. "That's right. My student Jiraiya tells me Orochimaru has something planned during the Chunin exams. This is another reason why you were so for my growth in rank, so I can keep an eye out for the pale pedophile, and if given the chance to take him out when he's got his guard down," she said, getting a nod. "That's right. We both know that his utmost goal is to gain immortality and the use of all ninjutsu in the world as to why he intends to get his hands on Sasuke. So if you can stop Orochimaru before Sasuke attempts to defect, I'd appreciate it. This is a S-rank mission, he said to them as they nodded, letting them walk away. Month overview. Over the span of a month, the all-kunoichi team did their quota of D ranks with the use of shadow clones. When the clones performed a max of 4. When that was done, the girls performed several high-ranking missions, gaining a total of 20 C ranks, 15 B rank and 10 A rank. But missions weren't the only thing that was dealt with, as Anko's home was fire-bombed due to an anonymous group who Kudenshei was permitted to stay with her crush, much to her joy. And then her constant harassment of not Kakashi not getting Naruko like he wanted, only to get told off. We find the 5 girls walking towards the Hokage's office due to receiving an urgent message to meet with the Hokage. Hokage's office. You wanted to see us, Hokage-sama? Anko asked, wearing a more modest outfit. She wore a longer black skirt that had spandex shorts underneath. And on top of the mesh suit she wore was a muscle shirt that held her firm D-cup bust, with her trench coat on her as usual, along with the snake fang on a wire cord. Yes, I have received a message from Kakashi that he is injured on a C-A rank mission and is calling for backup, the aged leader said, getting a group groan. Why are they even still there when his genin aren't even ready for an A rank? Monique asked. Truth be told, it wasn't even Kakashi who sent the message, it was Danzo's nephew Sai who sent it. Apparently Kakashi let his 2 students call the shots and continue even though they aren't qualified. Apparently the client lied about the mission difficulty because they couldn't afford the higher mission, because Gato of Gato's shipping company has been overtaxing the Land of Waves blind and is trying to prevent Tizuna from succeeding in the creation of a bridge to get his people more money by opening more trades, he said, shaking his head. It's obvious that he's doing this so my idiot cousin awakens his Sharingan. He doesn't care for Sakura's or Sai's life. To him they're cannon fodder. Are you sure Kakashi is deserving of his rank? Hokage-sama. I mean, not even a beginning Junin is stupid enough to let fresh out of the academy students make life-threatening calls. Like going into an enemy's territory without proper training, Naruko said, getting a raised eyebrow. What do you mean proper training? Sarutobi asked. He hasn't even taught them the tree climbing exercise since their team's been formed. All he's taught them are teamwork exercises, and when training is over he oversees Sasuke's training. I know because Sai and I are like siblings and he's told me what he's been learning from Kakashi. To be honest, the second I learned of that I took to helping Sai when I had the chance, even if the only thing I could give were training regimens and scrolls that would help, she said, seeing her leader grow furious. I can assure this Naruko Hitaki is going under review with the Shinobi Council when he returns, he said, heated before he calmed himself. But for now it's obvious that he can't lead a mission, that's why his team will not be paid for this. And I am relinquishing control of the mission to 5. This is an A-rank mission, so get packed and head to the Land of Waves, he said, getting a nod, giving Anko a scroll as they all left his office. East Gate. Everyone's got their stuff packed? Anko asked, getting nods from the girls present as she nodded. Alright, let's go save some ass, she said, hopping through the trees, quickly being followed by her fellow Tokubetsu Junin and Shunin. Land of Waves. At Tizuna's home. Knock knock knock. The daughter of the mission's client walked towards the door until she was stopped by Sai, who answered. Ah, Anko-san, did Hokage-sama send you? The pale boy asked, getting a nod as he led in the group. Thanks, Sai. Where's your team and the client? Anko asked as he returned to his seat, as he was next to the client's daughter and grandson. Kakashi is recovering and Sasuke and Sakura are supposed to be guarding Tizuna, he said, getting a questioning look. What do you mean supposed to? Naruko asked. Since we got here yesterday we haven't done anything in terms of recon. Honestly, when we ran into the Demon Brothers, when I suggested we call for backup, Kakashi disregarded my suggestion for his 2 lapdogs, he said, looking at Naruko, who nodded. And what does supposed to mean, Sai? Are they not watching the client? She asked, getting a nod as she looked at Anko, who nodded as she left from the house. Shigo, Kim, Monique, search the area in case Gato's got some hired muscle lurking around. I got a mutt in need of a beat down, Anko said as the 3 girls walked out of the door while she made her way to Kakashi as Tizuna's daughter pointed upstairs. He's upstairs, first door to your right, she said, getting a grin. Thank you, miss, Anko started. Tsunami, I'm Tizuna's daughter and that's my son Inari, she said, getting a nod as she walked upstairs. Upstairs, walking up the stairs, she saw Kakashi reading his porn as she said, Hitaki, what the fuck do you think you're doing? Getting over his impending heart attack, he returned his focus back to his book saying, reading, what are you doing here, Midarashi? He got smacked in the head by a scroll as she said, your only non-brain dead genin sent a request for backup, and it seems he's the only one doing his job as a shinobi. What do you mean? He had no authority to do that, like you have no authority to be here, he said, getting a smug look. That's where you're wrong. You see, your actions with your team has been noticed by Lord Hokage. You're in serious shit, as when you get back you're to be judged by the Hokage and the Shinobi Council to see if you're competent to act as a Junin. And my team is now taking over as of now while your team receives no pay or proof of completion, she said as her smug grin remained the same. He was shocked and was about to say something till she said, and when I said you only had one non-brain-dead genin I meant Sai, as he guarded Tazuna's home while your prized Uchiha and his fangirl aren't even guarding Tazuna while he works on the bridge. She walked downstairs ignoring the glare he sent her way as she walked out of the room. Unfinished bridge. Excuse me sir, I'm looking for Tazuna. Is he here? Naruko asked a group of men who were putting together a support beam. Yeah little lady, he's just at the edge down there. He's got gray hair and carries a sake container, you can't miss him if you follow the smell of booze. A young man said, pointing to the edge as she saw an old gentleman. Thank you boys, she said, running to the edge to the bridge builder. Excuse me Tazuna-san, me and my team was sent as backup, and seeing as the genin sent to watch you or me, I've come to guard you. My name is Naruko, just tell me what I have to do and it will be done, she said, getting an appreciative nod. Well thank you Missy. As you already know, I am Tazuna the bridge builder, though I was supposed to be guarded by the brat with duck-shaped hair and the pink girl, but they thought training was more important, so I came anyway because I have to oversee the progress of the bridge and make sure nothing goes wrong, he explained, getting a nod from her. I understand Tazuna-san. Also you look like you could use an additional set of hands, I could give you some help, she offered, getting an appreciative nod. That would be great, but how are you going to do that? He asked as he watched her make a cross with her 2 fingers when in a puff of smoke 200 shadow clones were formed. I didn't know if this was enough, but all you gotta do is tell them what to do and they'll do it. I'll leave a special clone keep watch while I go survey the town for some of Gado's thugs, she said, getting a nod. While he told the clones what to do through the town, it was safe to say that Naruko was far from pleased in terms of the state of the land, as stores were closed down and what stores that weren't closed had poor produce. The people wore dirty rags and many looked like they hadn't eaten in months. She had to hold down her urge to kill Gado outright then and there, but chose against it. She continued to walk until she came across 3 beautiful women who were surrounded by thugs. The first was a beautiful raven black-haired youth who appeared to be her age with pale porcelain skin, and 2 others who looked like they could be sisters, with the second girl having lush blonde hair and the third had dark skin and ash-gray hair. All 3 looked like they were wearing regal kimono, making her think the people mugging her were after what money they had a chance at things. She hit one guy into a tree as he reached for the dark girl's chest, making everyone look at her. She could see the 3 girls have adoring looks while the others were giving lustful looks towards the redhead. She said, "All right boys, you've got 3 seconds to leave and grab your friend before you end up as a bloody smear in the ground." They laughed until one who was coming from behind got sliced to ribbons, noticing glints of light come from behind her, seeing the light come from wire attached to her outstretched hand. "I'll give you one last chance, grab your friend or end up like your friend. Your choice?" she repeated until they charged, making her sigh, snagging them all together as she twitched a finger, letting a wire slice through them all cleanly. She sighed as she incinerated their remains, leaving nothing left as she walked towards the 3 girls, saying, "Are you 3 all right? They didn't hurt you, did they?" Shaking their heads, the blonde said, "No thanks to you, Naruko-chan." Getting a raised eyebrow, she said, slowly reaching for her chikuto, "How do you know my name?" The dark-skinned beauty that upon closer inspection had scars that matched her skin tone, if not was slightly lighter. "Why wouldn't we know of you, Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze Uchiha Senju, descendant to the Sage of 6 Paths and new Jubi no Ukami." Now that put her on edge as she completely unsheathed her chikuto, saying, "All right, just who are you 3? The only people who know that are the clans of Konoha, the Hokage and his elders, and your friends?" the dark-skinned girl stated, getting a glare only for her to be smacked upside the head by her blonde twin. "Sister, I think it would be best if you stop messing with her and tell her who we are," the blonde suggested, getting a sigh. Fine, just gotta ruin my fun. Naruko, I am Kisa. The blonde is Jun and our youngest sister is Haruna, but respectively we are Yami, Kami and the Shinigami, your mates, she said, getting a disbelieving look from the girl. And I am Orochimaru's sister. Now who are you really? She said, hearing a soft giggle from the forest, but quickly disregarded it as the three women before her sighed. I told you, Haruna, that she wouldn't believe us without proof. It's understandable three women come from nowhere, claiming to know you and your history, and being her mates is a little far-fetched, Jun said, looking to her sisters who nodded only to get a cough in the background. Okay, how about we prove to you we're Kami? Kisa said as her sisters thought it over till one of them snapped their fingers. I know, let's head to the hospital, Jun said excitedly, getting a raised eyebrow from Naruko till they grabbed her and vanished in a burst of light, quickly being followed by a pair of bright hazel eyes. Hospital in the land of waves. Whoa, now I know how Kim, Monique and Shigo feel when I do that, Naruko said, getting her stomach to catch up to her. Okay, so what is so important that we had to come to the hospital? She asked as they walked in towards a woman sitting at the front desk. Excuse me, miss, Kisa said, getting the receptionist getting her to look up at the four women. Yes, what can I do for you today? She asked as the girls gestured to Naruko as Kisa said. There should be a woman who looks similar to this girl in here. She's a Jane Doe. The goddess turned human said, making the nurse take a closer look at her. Now that you mention it, yes, there is a woman similar to her. She was brought here about 10 years ago, but nobody could id her except for her leaf headband. Are you her sister? She asked with a raised eyebrow. She responded with her eyebrow twitching. Is that supposed to be a crack at my age, miss? I'll have you know I'm 16 years old. Seeing what she said, she recovered. Oh no, I didn't mean to say you look old, but you and our Jane Doe could look like twins. I'm not helping myself, I'll just show you. She led them down the hall as a nurse asked, where are you taking them? We finally have some connection to our 10-year Jane Doe and I'm taking them to her, she said, getting a surprised look, and nodded, heading to a doctor. You don't know how happy we are to figure out who she is. For the last 10 years we've been trying to find out who she is, but no information has come up till now. We're here, she said, opening the door, revealing a Kushina who was younger than Naruko remembered from the photo of her and her father. The nurse, seeing Naruko stare at her mother, said, I'll give you some space. So Naruko, do you believe us now? Kisa asked with a raised eyebrow. How is she here? From my memory she died with dad blocking Kyuubi's nail. And why is she as young as me? She asked. Well, my dear, we've watched over you since your birth, seeing as you'd be our mate. When your mother died, she was with us in heaven watching everything you've done and grew to love you like we have. Giving her this chance, we spent 10 years creating a younger body for her to live with you as another mate as well as ourselves, Kisa explained, getting a wide-eyed look. It was no surprise she thought her mom was attractive, and if they weren't related she would take the chance to be with her, as her mother at the age the photo was taken was a stunning woman, but now she was just as breathtaking. How do I wake her up? She asked, still looking at her mom. You're willing to give us four a chance? Jun asked before they were interrupted by another voice. I think you mean 5 ladies, a disembodied voice said, making them look around only to have their sight land at the right corner of the room. Out came to Naruko's shock Orochimaru, or at least she looked like him from the skin tone to the markings on her face, but her physique was nothing like Orochimaru's. She was rather curvaceous and endowed with her slim waist and wide hips with her large F-cup bust. She wore a pair of endo-styled pants and a zip-up black zip-up high-collared kimono top. The last thing that stood out from Orochimaru was their eyes. His were cold and sadistic. Hers were warm and caring. Drawing her sword, she said, Orochimaru, what are you doing here? You here for the Uchiha brat? The look-alike raised an eyebrow before she gave a hearty laugh that sounded like music on the wind. Orochimaru? You're talking about my foolish twin brother. No, my dear, I am Himegami, his older twin sister and sage of the serpent contract. Raising an eyebrow, she said, okay, and let's say I believe you. Why are you here? The elegant beauty sighed as she sat against the wall holding her Kage Kusanagi in her arms. My dear, no need to be so tense. If I was my brother and wanted your body when I placed that mark on you, I would have taken you when I placed the mark. After all, I was Kushina sensei's student. Why would I hurt my fiancé and in turn someone who was a mother to me? That through her? You placed this mark? I thought this was Orochimaru's curse mark? Shaking her head as she strutted towards her until her soft hand brushed Naruko's cheek, she said, No, my dear, that was my brother's bastardization of a holy mark. It works in the same sense, except he made his where it can't be removed if the person has a dark heart and he places his own soul into it to help him overshadow the bearers while making them weak enough to take over. Mind strengthen. The bearers will by giving the user a controlled amount of natural chakra per stage from 1 to 3, letting them increase their strength, reserves and stamina. Slowly believing her, she said, "Okay, but how do we have a contract? And why give me the mark and appear now of all times?" Sitting at the bed, she said, "To answer in order. It was a month before you were born. Kushina-sensei wanted to adopt me into the family, but I was already too old to be considered a daughter, so she set it up as a marriage contract between you and me. For the second and third, I know my brother is going to try something in coming future. I wanted you to have the strength necessary to fight him, and for the last I was acting as Sarutobi-sama's informant, seeing as Jiraiya finds porn and peeping on woman to have higher priority." She nodded, saying, "Okay, I believe you, but any her up? Well, she just has to ingest some of your blood and she should wake up due to how you blood heals wounds and injuries at increased rates. It should have the same effect on people in stasis." Haruna suggested, getting a raised eyebrow. "And how would I go about getting her to swallow it mouth to mouth?" She joked until she saw the 4 women in front of her were dead serious, making her roll her eyes. "Of course I do, because anything involving me is never simple," she said, cutting her palm with her nails as she let a large amount of blood pool in her mouth as she slowly brought her lips to her mother's. "Make it a passionate one too, Naruko-chan," Kisa said, almost making her swallow it until she stopped herself as she shot the goddess a glare. Using one hand to softly open her mouth, she covered her lips with her own, letting her blood ooze down her mother's throat, and was about to pull back when she felt a pair of arms wrap around her, keeping her in place as a tongue slipped through her lips. The older turned younger woman moaned as her tongue feverishly locked around her daughter's as her arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her onto the bed. "Wow, Kushina really loves Naruko, doesn't she?" Himegami asked, getting nods from the others present, watching them make out as Naruko finally got into it and reciprocated. The desire to breathe grew too strong as they separated. Naruko-chan tastes so good, but so bold, going as far as to kiss her mother without giving her a hug since her birth. She did just that and hugged her as Kushina rubbed her back softly with one hand while combing her other hand through her hair as her daughter cried, "Shush, it's okay sweetie, mommy's here. She won't leave you again, I promise," she said softly as she waved to the goddesses and her student, which they returned. "Promise?" she said softly, getting a nod as she pulled her daughter back, kissing her again softly as she wiped her tears. "You know us Uzumaki's, Naruko-chan, when we give our words we keep them. Now let me get my clothes and equipment and we can get out of here." "Actually, where are we anyway?" she asked, getting up. "We're in the land of waves. I'm currently on a mission to help the bridge builder save their land from a corrupt tycoon known as Gato of Gato's shipping company, as he bleeds this country dry and killing off people who oppose his power. The bridge builder included. I've left enough clones to defend him while I came out here to gather information when I saw thugs harass them as they led me here," Naruko said, gesturing to the goddesses. "What's happening now?" she asked as Naruko concentrated. "Can you get the nurse, sweetie?" she asked, only for said aide to walk in. "Oh, you're awake, this is a miracle. I'll get your stuff," she said, running out of the room and back in minutes along with a long katana and some clothes with her leaf headband. After she got changed, she and the others walked out as she was now wearing black Anbu-style pants with a tight black muscle shirt with her Anbu-styled chest plate in a deep red with arm and leg guards, along with her long katana strapped to her back as her headband was wrapped around her neck. After they all got checked out, they walked out as Naruko brought up an interesting thought. "How am I going to explain 3 goddesses, Orochimaru's sister and my mom who died now reborn, to the other ninja?" Instead of talking, Himegami and the others transformed as Himegami took the form of a girl the same age as Naruko, wearing what she was earlier, except she was no longer pale, she had a healthy tan with brown eyes. Jun and her sisters were wearing clothing similar to Naruko's while looking slightly older, while Kushina stayed the same. "I don't have to disguise myself. If they got a problem, I'll lie," she said as the others nodded as they tree-hopped to the outside of the small home. Walking in, she said, "Hey Tazuna, how's the work on the bridge now that my clones helped?" The bridge builder said, "Oh kid, you were a lifesaver. We've made more progress in a day than we have in a week. Think you can make more of them when it's your turn to guard me, seeing as the 2 meant to guard me still haven't gotten back yet?" She nodded with a smile. No problem Tazuna, just tell me how many you would need and I'll make him. Where are Anko and the others? Raising an eyebrow Tsunami said, they're upstairs second door to the left. The lodgings are boys in one room, girls in another. Are those friends of yours? Nodding she said, yes, they're looking for a village to join and I was going to speak about this with my sensei and team. Thanking her they went upstairs while Tsunami went back into the kitchen making dinner enough for everyone. Upstairs, hey Anko-chan, I'm back and I've brought company, Naruko said walking into their room as she saw Kim, Monique and Shigo. Wearing a glare at the wall as she and the others looked at Anko, who shrugged. They took out a large group of thugs stationed just outside the forest. But who are they? Anko asked. Walking in they've closed the door as they were hit with a puff of smoke and light revealing an Himegami and the goddesses. I've got a number of questions so I'll do them slowly. First, Naruko, is that a shadow clone? She asked, getting a negative as she and the others were looking at a perfect red-headed double of Naruko. No Anko-chan, I am not a screwed up shadow clone. It's me Kushina, you know, your adoptive sister and sensei, she said, getting a kunai to the throat. Not funny, she died protecting Naruko-chan. I'll ask again, who are you? She said, pressing the kunai deeper into her throat, just getting blood. Himegami said, it's true Anko, she's real. You can thank Kami-sama, Yami-sama and Shinigami-sama for that. Raising an eyebrow she said, and I'm supposed to believe that those three are the goddesses of the world. What's next? They're Naruko-chan's mate. Me too actually, but this was before she was born, much like yourself Anko. Kami and her sisters brought her mom back and made her younger so they could all be with Naruko here. We're heading back to the village when the mission is finished, Himegami said as Naruko looked at Anko with a raised eyebrows, seeing her blush while looking away. You? Naruko started, getting a nod. Yes, I love you. It was the sole reason why I asked for you as an apprentice in hopes of telling you eventually. We've spent so much time invested in missions so I never had the chance of telling you, she said, looking away as she was kissed by Naruko. If you like me, all you had to do was tell me. You know I'm dense in terms of love. Hell, Hinata had to tie me to my bed and shouted at me when I worked myself to exhaustion while training. Next time Anko-chan, if you got something to say, don't hide it, alright? She said, getting a nod from the snake mistress. They heard a knock on the door as the others disguised themselves as they were before when the door slid open revealing Tsunami. She said, dinner is ready, everyone get washed up and eat. They nodded, doing such knowing this was going to be an interesting day. Global Justice Base. How is it coming, Wade? Betty asked, walking into the lab as it's been a month since her 3 top operatives had just been sent across dimensions and have had no luck in contacting them to understand their situation. Same as you've asked last week. This device, or should I say what little of this device we've salvaged from Dementor's base, is something I've never seen, though I've gotten something, Wade said, walking over to the monitor keeping track of their signal as it was attached to the device. What am I seeing here? She asked, not understanding, as like before while looking at the monitor that once had their signature split was now slightly stronger. Thanks to this we've managed to get a better lock on their signature and could possibly track them down to a single location. Once we do, all we have to do is come to find a single point of transfer where we can go between the 2 worlds and grab Kim, Shigo and Monique. Wade explained, getting a nod from the director. Any news on Ron? He asked, receiving a groan. Ever since Kim found out about him cheating on high school friend, he's been hell-bent on trying to get back together, although Kim's parents threatened him with their standard threats of a black hole and having his brain permanently swapped with a random animal, although that didn't stop him from trying, as when he was told by Wade what had happened he insisted that when they find a way to get them he be one of the people to save her. He keeps insisting he be in the group to save her, she said in frustration, as he's kept this up every week since it happened. He does know that due to him cheating on her she won't even speak to him without the urge to beat him till he's deaf and dumb, right? Wade asked rhetorically, getting a nod. True, but enough about that. When do you think you'll have a stable access point? She asked, wanting her 3 top agent to return as quickly as possible. You want me to lie or be straight with you? He asked, getting a raised eyebrow before he coughed into his hand as the others working with him on the device sniggered before they caught a glare sent their way by the director. Right, anyways, at the least another month to the max 6 months, he said as he continued to type away at the computer, which she accepted before walking out of the lab. Betty, she heard, making her groan in annoyance, as she only knows one person other than her brother to have such a high voice for a grown man. What is it, Ronald? she asked, already knowing what he could want. You guys find anything on KP? He asked. Since high school he was no longer the short twiggy football player, but he was now a well-physique youth with Rufus still on his shoulder. As I told you before, Ronald, I will let you know when we get an absolute pinpoint on her location, but that won't happen unless you give us time to work. I don't understand why it matters to you since you hurt her though, she asked as she leveled him a glare which was just as frightening with or without her eye patch. Betty, it wasn't on purpose, he tried to reason only to get a stronger glare. Don't give me that, Ronald. You know full and damn well what you were doing when you took that girl to your and Kim's home and slept with her in both of your beds, so don't try and bullshit your way out of this by saying that you didn't know what you were doing at the time, she said, walking past him, not giving him a second glance as she walked back to her office. Kim, Shigo, Monique, I hope you three are alright wherever you are, she silently prayed as she sat at her desk. Tazuna's home. After a week in Wave, Naruko and the others had been protecting Naruko's family since Team 7 haven't been doing their job, as Kakashi would train Sasuke openly now since he was caught and was seen teaching him his most signature technique, the Chidori. Though he doesn't have the criteria necessary to use it, although that didn't stop Naruko from copying it to teach the girls later. Today was Tazuna's day off, so they all sat in the house while Monique and Kim were out in the forest gathering herbs since morning, while Shigo was tending to her sword while Himegami offered to teach her the serpent-style kenjutsu, which for her lean body and flexibility mixed with her stamina and strength might do her well over the style Naruko taught her, although she took to it well enough while the others conversed with Tsunami and Tazuna. When Kim and Monique came back, Naruko noticed Monique had a struck stupid look on her face, making Naruko asked, "What hit Monique?" She met this boy in the forest and she's been a fumbling mess since, Kim explained, getting a nod as Monique still mumbled in nonsense as she staggered to a seat. He must have been pretty cute for him to leave the foxy Monique turning into a puddle of mush, Naruko said with a smirk, getting a barely recognizable, "Fuck you, Naruko," from the mocha-skinned youth, getting a chuckle as Shigo walked up to her and tapped Naruko on her shoulder. "What's up, Shegs?" she asked with a raised eyebrow, who sat next to her on the couch. "I was wondering if you could help me with something tonight," she asked quietly, receiving a raised eyebrow before nodding as she decided to help Inari and Tsunami, whom of which seemed to become rather attracted towards her as of late, as she would subtly make advances towards her which Naruko and the girls found nice, as Naruko admittedly found the single mother to be a rather beautiful woman. Her night plans set, she and the others took to training Inari and Tsunami since the beginning of the week when they saw them training, and was excited to learn from them, which they were happy to teach much to Kakashi and the Uchiha's ire. Especially when they wanted to join Konoha once the bridge was finished. While Tazuna was mildly sad about his daughter leaving, he got over it seeing that she was finally getting over her late husband's death and moving on, and it didn't hurt that Naruko introduced him to a nice young girl after making him slightly younger with her yukai. Same for Tsunami, as she was easily mistaken for Inari's older sister, his hot older sister, okay, his fine-ass hot older sister, while still holding that sexy MILF personality. Getting up, she stretched, saying, "I'm going out for some air." She was quickly followed by Tsunami, who thanks to the training she was put through became even more lean and well physique in her health, as she was now looking like a veteran kunoichi. Far from Tazuna's home, sitting on a tree branch, Naruko was seen relaxing with her eyes closed until she said, "Gotta work on your stealth training a bit more, Tsunami-heim, but an A for effort though." Dropping on the same branch as Naruko, holding a cute pout on her face, making her smirk when she asked, "Ah, how did you know I was following you?" "Since I left Tazuna's, although it helps to know your chakra even though you were a civilian, is higher than a veteran shinobi, at least an A rank low S rank kunoichi, but given time your reserves are still growing thanks to my yukai. Same for little Inari," she said, opening her visible eye, looking Tsunami in her beautiful coal-black eyes. "But I don't think that's why you decided to follow me, so Heim. What is it you need?" she asked, looking Tsunami in the eyes as she felt the mother of one slowly sit on Naruko's lap till her hands were on Naruko's shoulders. The young woman nodded, saying, "I want to be with you." Admittedly, this caught Naruko off guard as the woman explained, "You see, I talked to Kushina, who is your mother, a couple days ago when she sensed me eavesdropping on the conversation. She told me about you being the Jubi, your status as heiress to many clans, and many other things, with the most predominant being that you have to rebuild your clans. I won't deny that I would steal glances at you when you weren't aware, especially when you would step out of the bathroom in only a towel, and I can't stop myself from wanting you." Touched by this, she brought a hand to Tsunami's face, letting it rest on her cheek while whipping away a tear. She asked softly, But what is it about me that you love so much? I mean, I've hardly done anything to deserve your affection." Getting closer to Naruko as her arms were around the Jubi's neck as she was flushed against Naruko, she said, "Inari has been so alone when Kaiza died, and since you and the others came into our lives he's been more active and inspired. Please Naruko, mark me as your mate, let me be with you forever." Relenting, she pulled the collar of her shirt down till it was barely over her shoulder and let her fangs sink into the civilian's neck, getting an aroused moan as she felt her leg get wet from Tsunami's juices, which she steam cleaned with her Kaden affinity flowing through her body, much like the wet spot on her skirt as she removed it from hers to not arouse suspicion from the others. Letting the now marked wife feel the yukai flow through her as she brought her lips to Aruko's as they shared a kiss as their tongues battled for dominance, which was difficult on her end as she and Kaiza rarely kissed in such an intimate situation like this and let Naruko take the lead, just relishing the feel of her lover's hands on her ass, misogynerated, letting her gulp down air greedily. She got up, albeit unsteadily, as Naruko caught her before she fell, with Naruko having her arms wrapped around her waist, keeping her flushed against herself before she kissed the mark on her neck, which was that of a wolf's head with water forming around it. She let go once Tsunami steadied herself and watched her jump from branch to branch back to the house, leaving Naruko alone, groaning, thinking, "Great, now I'm horny and it takes some time to calm down." Hopping down, she decided to practice with the Chidori and make it her own, having already come up with several variants intent on taking her focus off her growing member. Tazuna's home. "So Shigo, when you going to take your move?" Kushina asked, sitting next to the forest green teen as she looked at the redhead next to her while they sat on the roof of the house. What do you mean, Kushina?" she asked with a stutter as a deep green hue formed on her cheeks. The mother of her affection grinned, saying, "I know you wanted to be alone with Naruko soon, or more so in a couple of hours, so what are you going to do? I mean, I love Naruko as much as you and Kimso do the other girls in her life, and the number of girls will only grow as time goes on. I wouldn't be surprised if a few women from other villages love her just as much." Seeing she had no way of getting out of this, she relented. "I intended to have her mark me tonight when she and I go to do recon in the forest. I was originally going to wait when we got back to Konoha, but when Tsunami came back I saw the mark on her and knew that even more girls would aim for her attention, like that Higurashi girl and that one girl with red marks on her cheeks." She nodded, knowing who she was talking about, as she was friends with their parents, but said as she placed her hand on Shigo's shoulder, "Well, if you're going to fuck, do know we Uzumaki women are rather aggressive and dominating, so if you're not going to put your all into it, it's going to hurt." She nodded, watching Kushina walk back into the house after telling her that they will be watching over Tazuna at the bridge while Kakashi's team will protect his family, though they would leave some clones as a precaution. Waiting for some time, she sat watching the sunset as she always had, letting the heat be absorbed into her body, but also as a means to think and calm herself, as she would after going ballistic when she worked for Draken back in the day. When the sun had finally sunk below the horizon, she had gone into the forest as she heard a loud flock of crows cawing at a rapid pace, seeing bolts of purplish-black bolts of electricity shoot off randomly, followed by a shockwave, making her think, who needs a neon sign when purplish-black lightning bolts just shoot off randomly? Inside Tazuna's home. "Hey Kushina, where's Naruko and Shigo?" Enko asked, seeing her come down from the stairs. "Naruko's working on a technique and I asked Shigo to go get her for dinner, but they might not be back before we're all finished," she explained as the others nodded while Team 7 save for Sai paid them no mind, although they were curious about what she was working on and would find out. Quietly, Kim asked, "Why is Tsunami so chipper today?" Responding, Haruna and the others gestured to the wolf mark on her collarbone, which was barely covered by her shirt. She said, "It seems while we weren't looking we all gained a new sister and will be gaining another tonight." Raising an eyebrow, Kim asked what she meant as Himagami told her the actual reason. Shigo's not inside yet, getting a blush from the redhead that planned on getting over her former lover and give herself to someone who she knows won't hurt her. "What are you all talking about?" Inari asked, walking over. Thanks to their training, even though it's been a week, he's already started to grow into an attractive young man, and given time would be a heartthrob among women everywhere, as he decided to forego his bucket hat while training and let his hair grow, which he kept in a ponytail. Tapping Inari on the nose, Jun said, "Just talking about lady stuff, Gaki, you know, gossiping and fashion and all that." He didn't believe her but decided against calling her out on it as he went back to his book on genjutsu and art he took to as well as he did to kenjutsu and taijutsu. His mom soon joined him as she took to reading as well, although hers is about a man with two souls fighting for control of the body they shared while through their life they experienced many trials. After borrowing the book from Naruko, when she saw her reading it she found it to be quite the read and she hardly put it down even while cooking. Looking to the side she said, "They better hurry back soon cause dinner will be ready and I don't want them to come back to a cold meal." The girls smirked as they heard Monique say, "I think they'll skip dinner and head for dessert." Inari, who heard, had a question mark over his head as he looked at his mom, who told him when he was older, only causing another question mark to appear overhead while Monique gently patted him on the head. Forest, we find Naruko without her kimono top, wearing only her fishnet shirt as she continued to practice her variant of the Chidori when she heard a whistle from behind her, causing her to turn, seeing Shigo lean against a tree while she whipped some sweat from her forehead while sitting at a large lake with the moon reflecting its light around the area. "Damn girl, that's ridiculous with how much damage you do. What are you doing?" she asked, surveying the surrounding as the ground had several large holes, as did several trees as she sat next to Naruko. "I saw Kakashi teach Sasuke the basics of his Chidori and decided to make some variants after I copied it. The one I'm doing is more dangerous. Anyways, what is it you wanted to talk to me about, Shigo?" she asked as her green-skinned friend laid her head on her shoulder while the two let their feet soak in the water. Shigo tried to gather her thoughts as Naruko watched. She finally said, "We've known each other for some time now, haven't we?" Raising an eyebrow she said, "Yeah, for a whole month in the time you, Kim and Monique got here to the 31 years we spent training." "Why?" She felt Shigo's shift, bringing herself closer to her object of affection while Naruko relished in the warmth when Shigo said, How do you feel about me, Naruko? I mean, I told you all about my past and what I've done while we trained, but you never told me where you stood." She wrapped her arm around Shigo's waist, bringing her closer, saying, "Well, Shigo-chan, I know your life was difficult with how when you and your brothers, your egotistical older brother Higo included, got hit by that meteor, your father decided to use that to acquire fame. You weren't for it and he made you chose obey him and be his symbol of power or freedom, doing what you desire. I know that was a difficult choice for you and one nobody should be forced to make, especially when family is involved. I won't look down on you for becoming a mercenary and hired gun, as like you I have blood on my hands that can't be washed off. But I think Kami gave you three the chance to actually have a life, albeit one involving bloodshed as shinobi, but a life nonetheless," she said with a pause, making Shigo look at her. "And?" she prompted the 10 tails next to her, eager to know what she's thinking, feeling her heart race in both excitement by her answer and fear by her rejection. "And, I'm happy you three ended up in my life as you all became precious people in my life. With you and Kim holding an important place in my heart as women I love, while Monique is like a sister to me," she said, turning to look Shigo in the eyes as she was mesmerized by those deep reptilian slit forest green eyes that glowed beautifully in the night, and brought herself closer, claiming the girl's lips with her own, getting a soft moan from her green-skinned love. Slowly she let her tongue prod at Shigo's lips as she was given access, as their tongues tangled with one another and explored the others' mouths while Naruko relished in the heat she gave off. The need for the two as they separated, leaving a trail of saliva between them as Naruko said, "You know, I'm kind of sweaty from training and there is a lake right here to cool off in Shigo. I usually ask Hinata because she would bath with me whenever we were alone, but I really can't stand the feeling of being covered in sweat," she said. "Come on in, the water's great." The green-skinned teen was still unsure until she felt a furry appendage wrap around her wrist and saw it was a midnight black tail coming from Naruko, who was leaning forward, letting the girl see her round ass just peek above the water, with 9 of 10 tails waving around as it gently tugged her closer to the lake as she looked Shigo in the eye. "Please come join me, Shigo, it feels rather awkward just bathing with someone staring so intently at you," she said with a flirty grin as she watched Shigo undress as she revealed her firm taut body from not only her years as an assassin bearing fruit, but with the Yukai and heavenly body coming into play as she finally relented as she joined Naruko in the lake. As she shivered slightly from the cold water, Naruko grinned, saying, "See, it's not so bad now, is it?" She nodded once she had gotten used to it as the two of them sat on a rock when Shigo noticed something on Naruko's back. "Hey, Naruko." Opening an eye, she looked over at the green-skinned kunoichi. What's that on your back?" she asked when she noticed Naruko lock up before looking away, and for that moment Shigo didn't see that confident, strong-willed woman she fell for. Before her was a girl who was scarred, frightened of her past. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, Naruko. I was just curious is all. She shook her head and turned her back to her, giving her a perfect view of her back to show the kanji for demon carved into it with a nine-tailed fox carved into it as well. No, I had a feeling either you, Kim, or Monique would ask that question sooner or later. How did you get that? She asked, hesitant to touch them when Naruko grabbed her hand and placed it on her back, feeling the grooves as it seemed they never fully healed. As her hand roved over her back, she felt Naruko twitch under her touch. It's an old story. Back when I was a kid, when I was 3, I had a best friend who was the black sheep of the Uchiha clan. Unlike the rest of them, she didn't have the pale skin, the dark hair, or a genin affinity. In fact, her hair was borderline white with a deep tan and had a futon and sweet affinity. She started letting Shigo's hand feel ever groove. Next to Hinata and the others, she was the first friend I ever had, and she was like a sister to me. She wasn't all to liked in her clan. Anyways, our friendship was short, but one day a mob formed like usual, but they attempted to kill her as well while they forced me to watch. She heard Shigo gasp. She had lost a lot of blood, but she saw them advance on me, carving this in my back when she awakened her Sharingan and killed a large portion of the mob in front of her before she too had died, she said as Shigo felt her shake. Instead of feeling remorse, they cheered over the fact they killed a little girl and said how they would get paid for doing what they were asked to get rid of the Uchiha outcast. Something in me snapped. And I killed them all as I was covered in their blood with a grin before I passed out, only to wake up in the hospital. By this point, Shigo was in tears. I woke up a couple of days later thinking it was all some morbid dream and I would go outside to see her alive and smiling like usual. That wasn't the case. As the Hokage came, I asked if I could go see my friend. When he told me she died the same day I was taken to the hospital, as he took me to her grave. I broke down there and refused to have this healed, no matter how much he insisted, to remind myself of that day and find the bastard responsible for hiring them to kill her. That was when I put myself through hell while training, she said, bringing Shigo onto her lap, wrapping her arms around her waist. And as a result I became an Anbu at the age of 8.5, and another year and a half later I became Anbu captain at the age of 10, performing missions not even the entire Anbu would take that were SSS rank, she said, kissing her neck, getting a moan, feeling a different wetness on her. When Naruko pulled out of her, she had already come to exhaustion, as Shigo's second orgasm had been far too much for her making. Naruko cleaned the both of them off as she dressed both herself and Shigo of sweat and each other's scent as she put her clothes back on as well as Shigo's before carrying her bridal style as she traversed the trees, feeling Shigo snuggle closer to her chest for warmth, which she provided as she flared her genin affinity, letting her draw in the warmth. Tazuna's home. Can't believe how late it got, everyone heard Naruko say as she walked in with Shigo in her arms, as Kim walked forward asking, "What happened to her?" she asked, getting a reassuring smile in response. "We were relaxing and wound up losing track of time. She was so tired I didn't have the heart to wake her up," she said, placing her on the couch when she had a good grip on Naruko's shirt, getting a chuckle from the others while Kakashi had to be an ass and ask, "And where have you been, Uzumaki?" he asked in a demanding tone. "Firstly, Hitaki, don't pull that with me because you are not my sensei, and I won't have any qualms with shoving my size 10 sandal up your ass and make you walk with it. Secondly, I was training and Shigo came to get when I suggested we just relax for a moment and we lost track of time," Naruko said, fixing him with a glare as he stood up. "Watch who you speak to, genin," he growled, getting a snort before blasting him with killer intent, making him buckle. "I am far greater than that of a mere genin, Hitaki. I suggest you remember that, and secondly, I would watch where you tread before the ground beneath you crumbles as your world falls around you, especially concerning your team, as you've solely focused on one brat and left the other two to fend for themselves. Pray Hokage-sama doesn't remove that precious tool from its socket, or I might just do it for him," she said, sitting down with Shigo's head on her lap as she whispered to Haruna. "Is it possible for Kakashi to just disappear without a trace?" she silently asked as Kakashi had gone back to his book. Shaking her head, she said, "As much as I would love for that, along with the self-deserving brat, no, my sister Jun decides when they die. I just take the truly corrupt souls." "How isn't the jutsu-stealing bastard not corrupted? He killed Rin-ne-chan just because dad taught her the Rasengan?" she asked, incredulously, knowing that Kakashi was always jealous of the fact Rin was taught their sensei's most renowned technique and could use it completely while he couldn't. She shrugged. "I don't know. While we've seen her soul, something about Kakashi just doesn't seem normal. Is it a repressed regret or He's just that good of a liar to hide his darkness, but when he shows his real colors, then we can make him go bye-bye. Accepting that, albeit reluctantly, she proceeded to comb her hand through Shigo's hair, receiving an appreciative groan as her nails brushed against her hidden ears. "So are you going to eat Naruko, or do you want to save it for later?" Tsunami asked, seeing Naruko just recline in her seat getting adjusted so Shigo was between her legs before she turned. Wrapping her arms around Naruko's waist with her head burying deeper into her stomach, mainly her face. "Ah, that's just the cutest sight. I never thought Shigo did adorable," Monique cooed, seeing Shigo murmur in her sleep that sounded faintly like, "Fuck you, Monique. I think we'll save ours for later tonight, I'm still rather exhausted myself," she said, getting a nod from her newest maid and current hostess as she pre-made Naruko's and Shigo's plates and placed them in storage seals to preserve the heat. Naruko was about to join Shigo in her sleep when Kakashi said, "I still expect you to train Sasuke, Naruko." Giving him the finger, she said, "How about you do your job or what little teaching your genin, because when we return I can assure you that your position as Junin will be no more. And if you ever think of forcing us to teach the brat, you can expect yourself dead before your corpse hits the ground." He growled, saying, "And I'll just go to the council for disobeying a Junin's orders. And I'll counter that with abuse of power and authority, Hitaki. And who are the council going to support? The power-hungry Uchiha and his lapdog who risked the life of his genin by taking them on a C-turned-A rank when they weren't ready for it," as said Junin continues. "To harass another team in attempts to gain their techniques when they have no right," she started as her eyes bled red for a moment. "Or the ninja who did their job and saved previously mentioned team when two of your genin left their client to the proverbial wolves as he was left alone tending to the bridge, leaving him open to Gato's hired help. Oh, you'd be lucky if the two brats kept their shinobi license by the end of this," Naruko said with a grin as she pulled her headband over her eyes, acting as a makeshift sleep mask to block out the light. "With one last thing to say," she said before falling asleep, "and let's not forget the fact that if you bring this to the civilian council, who are the main ass-kissers of the Uchiha, the elders, the shinobi council and the Hokage, your ass is going to be on the chopping block because your favoritism nearly cost the life of 3 genin, 2 of which are related to the head of the civilian council and Lord Danzo. So do you really want to start something with me?" she asked rhetorically. With a smile she went back to sleep, holding Shigo, ignoring the coos from the girls, Sakura included, while Kakashi and Sasuke glared as he reached for their swords only to receive a harsh electric charge, causing his to darken, making him scream. "Oh yeah, I forgot to mention our swords have seals on them to prevent unknown chakra signatures from wielding them, giving the user a horrible burn or the loss of a hand," she said as an afterthought with a smirk before falling asleep. Hours later, "That was a nice nap," Naruko said, looking out the window to see the moon was out as well as everyone in the house was asleep save for a pressure on her chest, who was now sitting on her lap. "Wide awake. Not that I don't enjoy this. Have you been watching me while I was asleep?" she asked, getting a slight nod from the green-skinned beauty, as she bent down to kiss her, which she reciprocated until the need for air became too great. "I guess it felt great then?" she asked, getting a smirk from the former villainess. "Great nothing, I still can't feel anything between my legs. I never felt so wanted till then. But where is everyone?" she asked with a raised eyebrow when her stomach rumbled, causing her to blush. "Well, I'm happy I made you feel so good. As for the second everyone's asleep, you wouldn't let go, so Tsunami made our meals and placed them in a storage scroll so we can eat if you're ready," she said as the two of them got up and went into the kitchen, finding a scroll laying out. When they opened it, their meals came out still as hot as when Tsunami made it, which they thoroughly enjoyed. "I hate to say this, Naruko, but she blows your cooking out of the water," Shigo said, getting an eye roll from the Jubi. "I'm guessing they're that comfortable?" Naruko asked sarcastically, getting a content nod as she promptly fell asleep with a light snore, making her shake her head in amusement before kissing her on the forehead and returning to sleep as well. Next day. "I still can't get over how many clones that girl can make," Monique said in morbid fascination, looking at the ever-large cluster of black and red-haired doubles working on the bridge. "I can't believe the uses," Enko said, with the girls save for Monique nodded with a perverted grin and a slight puddle of drool forming beneath them. "I'm just grateful for that little lady and all the hard work you've all done. It will take at this rate another week and everything should be finished. I really owe you all a great deal of thanks. That Hitaki fellow and his team, save for that quiet boy, don't seem to do their jobs," Tazuna said before shouting warnings to some crewmen as they almost incorrectly placed a support beam. Oh, you don't have to worry about them. Before we left I sent a summon to Hokage-sama updating him on Kakashi's actions. He and the two brats are going to get a serious ass handing. He also said he's understanding of your situation and said that he'll accept the mission you paid for and when you get back in the swing of things. Just send the proper payment for the A, Anko said, receiving a nod from the bridge builder. I really appreciate that because unless we find where Gato's hideout is we're going to need some time to regain that amount of money. He said when a voice behind them said, really because I just happened to find it when I sent some shadow clones to guard your family. The voice said, making them jump, and saw Naruko with an amused smirk. Naruko, you know we hate that, and why didn't you tell us? Kushina asked with a raised eyebrow once she got her heart rate to steady. I know, that's why I love doing it. And lastly, the reason I didn't say anything is because my clone just dispelled before it made another to continue its job. If you want Tazuna, I can go to the pig's place and reduce it to rubble and get your money. She said, looking at the client who she had also made younger, now looking like he always did, if slightly younger, if not in his early 20s, as he met this attractive young woman who admittedly hit things off on an admittedly high note. He nodded, saying, the sooner you can the better. Anything you ninja use is yours for the taking, he said, getting a grin as her sclera flashed black for a moment before she waved them off and vanished in a flash of black. That was new, Monique said slowly, as she had never seen that type of grin on her surrogate sister, and this truly worried her, as was Kim and Shigo, but her worry was quickly extinguished when Enko said, no need to worry, she gets like that when she hasn't shed any blood in a while or is seriously pissed. And with Kakashi, Sakura and Sasuke getting on her case and the lack of action, she's gotten a bit stir crazy, so this is like someone told her Christmas came early this year. Don't worry, once she slaughters a few thugs and possibly getting drenched in their blood she'll be fine, she said, gaining a few worried looks from the three girls. Is she always like that? Kim asked, getting a so-so expression. Not all the time. Back when she was in the Anbu as one of Konoha's strongest Anbu, she took missions that even the Sannin wouldn't dare take out of fear for their lives. During these she had to cut off all negative thoughts like, will I survive? Or, what if I mess up? The only thing on her mind when you see her eyes like that is kill and be quick about it, she said, watching the clones perform their given jobs. It's at that moment she gives her demon side what it craves, and that's hearing her prey beg for their lives only to receive nothing. It's why she keeps her distance from Hitaki and the Uchiha brat, because they work her nerves so much that the demon blood in her keeps clawing at the back of her mind, screaming to shut them up. Enko explained as she leaned back against a railing, chewing on some of her dango rations. Everyone was silent for a few moments until Kim said, she's going to be a mess when she gets back, won't she? Everyone nodded and continued to watch the clones work in a peaceful silence as they let the clones do everyone's jobs. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.